Although they did start working with the Beals revolver in the year of 1856, it would not be the same as what you think of the Remington New Model Army today.
And if you're like me, you're into the history stuff, the books, you like the guns are worth their weight in gold. Because the gun, it's fun to shoot, it's fun to point with, but without the story there, if you're a history person like I am, without the story, it really doesn't mean all that
The Ruger Security 9.
Can I redraw?
You already looked?
No.
You sure
Alright.
you didn't?
Now on through.
Another pro, at least a pro to me, is these guns are kind of a project. I like to look at them as I'm getting an advanced kit build in the mail whenever I get one. So it's a project that you can go down the road and you can either leave it as
Most people believe that the Walker was Colt's first extent to a very, very large pistol, but it wasn't. This was. This is Colt's 1839 to patent Firearms revolving carbine pistol. It is massive.
Hey, we're gone.
We're not there. It's been a while, guys, since I did this.
I hate it when that happens.
Hey, there I am. Hey, everybody.
There we are.
Oh, I kid you not. It has been so long since I've been on here. When I turned on StreamYard, it was a completely new layout. Nothing was the same. We don't have our backgrounds. We don't have anything. We got Ethan under the deck. So welcome back to the show. Of course, as you all know, I'm Garrett. That's Ethan. And, of course, we have the Saboteur, Sheldon, and Duke will be along soon. Unfortunately, Snapper couldn't make it tonight. It was kind of spur of the moment. But we're awfully glad Sheldon's here.
Yep.
Okay. Just to throw this out the beginning and the end, I'll probably throw it out again that on Memorial Day weekend, if any of you guys are in the Kansas vicinity, I'm pretty sure that I know Ethan and myself and pretty sure Sheldon and Duke and a couple other people will all be at the Fort Larned Memorial Day, basically a living history event. And we're going to be setting up with some pretty cool stuff. Hopefully, if everything works out, Sheldon will be there, full teepee, and we'll be there with the full encampment. And Duke will be there to guide us all if it all works out. So come on by and say hi if you have a chance and you're in the area of Fort Larned, Kansas. But that's next month, and we've been working feverishly to get there, haven't we, Sheldon?
Mm-hmm.
I call him up every day, and he's always got good ideas. He's about to start.
Well, we're in the
That's
middle
how-
of like 4 of them.
You're in the middle of 4 of them. What are you working on now? Your war shirt still?
Last couple weeks have been bad. Weather-wise, been bad. Trying to get like a breastplate done, but I decided to go the hard way and just not shell out for the shell, like the little oblong shells that you can buy.
Mm-hmm.
I decided to buy these little things, and you gotta file them to size, all that. And it's fun. I'm like halfway through, or a little over.
Then I failed you last week because I was supposed to do 3 hides. I was supposed to rawhide. I was gonna tan 2 cow hides and rawhide 1 for Sheldon, and about halfway through the first day, about 6 hours each into each of those hides, I got down to Sheldon's and I thought, I'll leave it here and come back tomorrow. This has been a long. And when I came back, it was gone. I found it about 3 days later in a drawer with the coyotes had chewed on it. So we'll have to try that one again.
At least you fed the coyotes.
Yep. And we do have 2 hides that are in pretty good shape, ox hides. We made a hat for Ethan, but he's not wearing it.
Yep, I look like Corporal Bighorn off of F Troop.
I think it looks good.
Are you ready to ride, Roy?
Kind of looks like Duke's hut.
Yeah, I know.
Kind of does, except for wool, not beaver. Let's get through some of these comments, guys. We got Diane Houston said hello. IWS Bull 1 said hello. Happy hour. Turkey Creek. Hi, TC. He says Turkey Creek's here. Chris Klein said hello, everyone. Kodak Tackman said, yeah, back in the saddle again. Kent said, hey, good evening, all. And Diane Houston said, Ethan, how is your son doing?
Oh, he's doing well. He's doing real good now. He's a chunk.
You and Jeremiah went fishing today.
Yes, we did, and he caught a bigger largemouth bass than I ever have in my entire life with his Paw Patrol fishing pole. He caught a 7-pound bass. I've never caught a 7-pounder.
That about weighed more than he does.
It was, I'm not joking, that fish was almost as tall as he was. It was a big bass.
Oh, that's pretty
Power
good.
of Paw Patrol.
Yep, the power of Paw Patrol was right. I was wondering if we were going to get that thing on the land for a minute because we were standing on the bridge. We had to make a tactical movement down through the fence and down to the bank.
Kodak Tackman says back in the saddle again. Yeah, there for a few months. I was starting to think we may never ever do this again. We even had the power. I think at one point we had the power shut off to the studio. Like we're never getting a chance to do this. Then I come over there one day and Ethan has cleaned the studio. He's got the old Colt table that we haven't seen for years. Cleaned off.
That's what I said. I'm probably going to start shooting my tabletop videos from here. It just feels all right. And I put a little bit of Danish oil on it. Looks pretty good.
And maybe we'll just start making time to make a video here and there.
Yeah.
We got one ready to go. We never released. You announced it in the community.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing is I have 4 children who are all under the 4 and under. So it's kind of hard to edit a video at the house. But now, I don't know if you can see this little dude here. This little doohickey here. I got a Wi-Fi router over here in the studio, so now I can do all my editing and stuff over here in the old trading post. Hence why I'm streaming over here.
Arizona Ghost Rider's in. Hi, Santee.
Howdy, Santee.
Everything Black Powder says howdy, boys.
Howdy.
Hi, Jake.
Oh, that reminds me. I got something of his sitting over there that I've been working on for the last 3 days. We're making some progress.
Oh,
no, I'm not going to go get it. That's why it's behind the camera.
If they strike us and shut us down, it was meant to be, and that'll just be it, won't it?
Yeah, no, I'm not going and grabbing it. That's why it's behind the counter. But I did get the lock done. I had to redo some stuff on the lock. I wasn't too happy with the first go around, but now she's a sparking little dude.
Charlotte Sheila's in. Hello. He says, hi, evening, gentlemen.
Howdy.
So, Sheldon, what's the project you're probably going to get finished first? Your breastplate or your war shirt or what?
Probably the breastplate because I got all the shells in front of me. My math kind of stinks, but I was guessing there's 5 rows. There's going to be about 30 to 35-ish shells per row, so about 150 plus shells.
Are those representations or are the shells that were so considered expensive back in the day had to come from the coast?
Yeah, they were considered expensive back then, but because I keep pouring over those Fort Laramie photos because they're like the best ones you got of people, men dressed back then, at least in their best attire. Mm-hmm. You see a lot of them wearing those and earrings and chokers and stuff. So yeah, they're expensive, but people like to flaunt wealth.
were they just? You think that's the photos from the Treaty of '68? Do you think those were just preserved better, or were they took on better equipment?
Just preserved better.
Not copied a million times.
I mean, they were copied a million times because when I was talking to the archivist at Fort Laramie, they said they got theirs from Newberry Library, and that's where I keep going to go see mine. Yeah, I mean, I understand that, that's a big treaty thing, so a lot of them were dressed in their best or dressed in the stuff that was given to them as gifts and stuff, but a lot of the jewelry and stuff, like the breastplates, I got right here, it's not the best, because after I put all the shells on, I need to put tacks in it, and I got little tiny antique brass tacks that need to get polished, and I'm sitting there with polishing compound, doing one at a time.
Oh, gonna drive those into your '66 Winchester, are you?
No. the carbine stock already has some.
Does it?
Yeah, so these are a pair. I'm not done with them because I need to get some wire for the hoop. But here's some earrings, or one pair I made, and basically that's what it's gonna look like. So.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing those in the pictures.
So
you need your Hardy hat.
I do, but I cannot afford a $200 hat.
I'm proud of you guys. This guy went through Las Vegas for a full weekend, WrestleMania weekend, to say the less, on $300 and survived. I don't know how you did it, but you are good.
Walk around, that's it.
You just walk down the road. Oh, that's funny. All right, so everything Black Powder said, howdy, Hugh. I'm going to do the 4570 gallery loads this weekend. Oh, so we probably know what next week's Everything Black Powder is going to be about. Josh Gaskin said, hey, the boys are back. Good to see you all. Imagine Mountain said, hello, everyone. Gina Woods says, great seeing you again. And Arizona Ghost Rider said, nice job, I believe, in reference to your earrings there.
Thank you.
Are you going to wear the hairpiece this year? I
dismantled it because I wanted to, make it better. It's still dismantled, but I have a second one hanging, but it's not as cool. The plates are a lot smaller.
Yeah.
Which, makes it a lot lighter to wear because I was wearing it.
It won't drag your head back like this.
Right. I do want to get the old one like more fixed and polished and whatnot, but that's going to take a bit because I have all those kind of other things to do.
You got all kinds of things to do.
Oh yeah.
Arizona Ghost Rider said, I found a hairpiece at Goodwill for $1. I thought it was a small price to pay. Well, you don't have the hairpiece, or I would show them what you're talking about. Do you? Or do you have
right back here?
Oh, it is. So, are those the originals, or have you already made those smaller?
No, these ones are just ones you can buy. Those are ones you can just buy, like Crazy Crow and stuff. The biggest they make is 3-inch.
I don't know, but you hung that dude in your hair and it drug the ground, and all I could think is if you take off running and hitting a tree root, that's going to be bad.
Oh, if you look, I mean, I understand, like with the ledger art, they, kind of embellished how they looked.
Yeah.
But in a lot of them, you see like the Cheyennes and Lakota wearing those in their ledger drawings where they're fighting somebody.
Yeah, it was a small price for a toupee.
Yeah.
Oh my! But anyway, we are gearing up for that all over again. Ethan just got him a new rifle. It's not here yet. It's coming in the mail. Tell us what you got coming, Ethan.
Being on Friday, I got an 1863 civilian Sharps rifle. Civilian model Sharps rifle.
If you guys don't know in the chat, but Sheldon and of course Ethan and Duke know how long I've tried to get one of us to have a good Sharps. Because
Garrett talked me into it.
We dumped every penny of the last several years into trapdoors and rolling blocks, and we never had Sharps. So,
Garrett. That all started with Garrett saying, you should get a Sharps. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. And then Garrett said, you should really get a Sharps. And I was like, oh, okay. So we got a Sharps. and then I went overboard. And I got all the stuff to make arsenal packs and everything else for it. Now I just got to get the bullet mold.
Well, Arrow's Gone has them for $5 off with damaged boxes.
Yeah, I saw that, but I'm kind of thinking because, like I said, I'm wanting to do something a little more after Civil War, and the only ones they got in stock are the Richmond Lab bullets. So I'm thinking of going with the Moose molds, and also I should mention that Sharps is an IAB, which are notorious for having large bores. So once it gets here, I'm going to slug the bore, and if it's what I think it is, I'll go with Moose Molds' ringtail because it's a lot bigger. But I've heard that Richmond Labs bullets work good in those IABs too, so I don't know. I might just go with that.
He was very close to getting a Malcolm scoped 45-100.
Yes, I was. Yes, I was.
Oh, I think I've seen that.
But every time I looked at it and I thought about it, we were like, we could fudge this reenactment because we don't do hardly anything that reenacts 1876 and beyond. And I kept thinking we could fudge it. And I remember I called Sheldon, and Sheldon's like, who would know? I said, I would know.
I was going to say I would know.
And Duke would know. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah,
Can't do
Duke
that.
would not approve.
Gotta keep Duke happy.
Well, Duke's more about the clothes, but I'm kind of a stickler for the firearms myself.
Yeah. But no, I got all the stuff to.
Yeah,
I'm under
the duck.
Oh yeah, I'm under the duck. He's right. Right there. Ooh, there you are.
No, it's the duck that's right above you on your right-hand side on screen.
Oh, okay. Well, it looks different for me.
But anyway, Shot Shield said, Garrett, you see the beautiful Burnside I just got. I'd love to have that too. I'd love to have a sharp or a star carbine one day, a Birdside. We got the Merrill. I'd like to have a little, at least experience all of them.
I almost bought an original Baker the other day.
Yeah, that would have gone over good where we're going.
I said the other day, this was a couple months ago. I let go at 2,500 because it went a lot higher than that because it came with the original bayonet and everything. Yeah, that went for a lot more than I was willing to give.
Shot Sheila said, Ethan's Merrill video make me really want one. Yeah, you did some long range shooting with that Merrill, didn't you?
Yeah, I was having trouble though with the Burnside bullets we were shooting out of it until we found out later on there was a different way. I can't remember what I did, but there was a different way I started wrapping the cartridges.
Yeah.
And it started making them run better.
The trouble is the Burnside bullets are the closest bullets you can get at the moment. Nobody makes
the
Merrill bullet, but the trouble is they're just ever so slightly so large that when you go to try to close it on the paper cartridge, it crunches the cartridge. I found it shoots best with just a 54 caliber round ball.
Yeah.
And a full charge of powder behind it.
Yeah. Well, right now I'm working on a monstrosity over there. Like I said, I've got 3 projects going on all at once. I got Jake's Baker, which I was working on pretty profusely yesterday until yesterday evening. And then I got a 1733 I'm working on for a guy. And I was working on that on Sunday. And now I was working on the wall gun today. And I think I've got it pretty well. I'm pretty happy with how the rear lug's going to turn out on that thing.
Yeah.
Well, I got a little bit carried away because I was a little nervous about that rear lug coming loose, considering that takes all of the recoil. That's where your pivot pin goes through. So I got a little carried away. Not only did I have it dovetailed, I dovetailed it in. I have a friend of mine over here in Sawyer. He has a milling machine. He started the milling slots, and I dovetailed them out with a file. So, and then he made me this huge lug, 1/2-inch thick lug, instead of the littler ones that it comes with. So I got this big lug dovetailed in, and then not only is it dovetailed in, I have holes drilled through it, and it's rosette welded in, and not only is it rosette welded in, I welded it in all the way around too, so it ain't going nowhere.
So that's been your projects here lately? I got projects right there. Octagon authentic tip poles. I just finally finished those. They're kind of marinating linseed oil right now.
Yeah. See, I haven't really been working on flintlocks here because, like I said, with the kid issue. I was gone for like 3 months. And then once I got back, they where I was working at, they fired everybody except for me and the manager and one other guy. And so I spent a lot more time working behind the counter than working at the gunsmithing station. So now I've bound and determined I just take these flintlocks home with me and work on them in my free time at home. It goes a lot better that way. I don't have people standing over me while I'm trying to work.
So what's an interesting gun you worked on at the store recently?
Recently? I'm trying to think here. I get a bunch of really junky ones coming in. And I don't know what people... Modern guns.
Girls, people of all ages.
Imagine that. A gunsmith gets a lot of guns to work on. Junk guns to work on. Imagine that. Oh, there's Duke.
That was anticlimactic. It was just a picture.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds like
Yeah.
That's all we got was a yeah.
Let's just
Actually-
say it's been a long 30 minutes.
Oh.
I can imagine. So I gotta ask, dude, you still got that gray vest you have on in that picture?
No, that belonged to Fort Laramie.
You was borrowing.
Yeah. It's kind of a gray brown, but it did not have the proper shawl collar. It didn't go all the way around.
See, Garrett, we would have never gotten away with taking an 1874 Sharps to Fort Lauderdale in 1868.
Well,
Nope.
to be fair, it was 69. So, dude, is your Sharps a 69 conversion? Then it's still got the pellet primer spot on it, even though it's converted.
No, it's a sporter model because it doesn't have the pellet primer, but it's got the cap lock hammer.
Oh, gotcha. Gotcha. And Sheldon,
No,
he just don't got an old business rifle.
I can tell
Yeah,
you
I know where that one come from.
What do you say?
I can tell you an interesting gun I've gotten to work on here. It was before I went up to spent 3 months up in Wichita. It's the gun that the video that has been filmed and yet to be released is about. That 1864 Springfield.
Mm.
Yeah, I had a guy came in and he looked at the flintlocks on the wall. He said, my great grandpa was Captain Parker. And he's like, he was at the Lexington Green. I was like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, we still got his uniform and his rifle. I was like, really? Yeah. You want to see that rifle? Yeah, sure. So he come back in about 2 hours later. He's like, yeah, it was laying up on the rafters in the attic. And I was like, wait, what? And he comes in and he goes, here it is. And he pulls it out and it's an 1864 Springfield. I said, well, I don't know how to break this to you, but this isn't Captain Parker's rifle in the Revolutionary War. Well, how do you know that? Are you sure? I said, well, let me put it to you this way. If I were to pull out this M16 right here and tell you that this was used in World War I, would you believe me? No. I was like, yeah, it's about 100 years. It's 99 years too late. He's like, it's about 100 years too late. So he was like, oh, but anyhow, no, that was an all matching rifle. You know, I went and I did some work on it, had to rebuild the lock on it.
Made a video on it, but it's never been released yet.
Yeah, like I said, I've got a video on it. I just haven't released it yet. Now I got the Wi-Fi over here. I can move the computer over. I might do that tonight and edit that video up. But no, it's pretty good shooting on a rifle.
Long story short, we didn't get the 1874 Sharps to reenact 1868. Sadly. That's sad. It's 3 out of 4 of us now on the Sharps, and the only one that don't is me. But I got in mind one of these days what I want. I want a 63 convert or 67 conversion in 5070, but in the rifle. I think that would be sweet. So you just gotta wait till I find the right one.
Ethan there just had to break that man's poor heart thinking he had a antique.
Well, it was an antique still.
An antique.
Not as antique. Yeah. I've had that a couple of times where somebody told me all about their relative's Colt they used during the Civil War, and it's a conversion, and I'm like, it looks right, but this serial number don't match. It matches everything, but it don't match. Like this gun was made in 1871 by the Colt factory. It's not a Civil War Colt, guys. I'm sorry.
I did have
Well,
another.
it's kinda like
Had
when I was out
bacon,
there.
bacon manufacturing. And one
Go
of them
ahead.
come.
Go ahead, Duke.
I was gonna say it's kind of like that time I was out there at Bent's Fort, and this guy came in and told me that his uncle was the commander in the Mormon battalion, and then marched through Bent's Fort and was killed in the Mexican War and buried in 1845. I had to look at him real hard in the eye to tell him. It was real hard to tell him that Mexican War didn't start until 46.
Well, yeah, that's kind of the way those things go. But you always all hate to break people's hearts. Let's see. There's a few comments over here. Ethan, did you ever find a good mold for the Merrill? No, we kind of quit looking. We have the gun, but it was kind of passing.
I'm gonna have to leave right quick and come back on my my earbud. Sit down.
Okay.
I don't want it to echo.
All right.
Alrighty.
That's good. Yeah, we never found them. We might look again, but we kind of moved on to other stuff. Joshua Harris said, "Good evening, everyone. Happy to see you guys back." Turkey Creek said, "Ethan, I'm rather envious of all those rifle shop kits you just mentioned." Joshua Harris said, "I got a good an InvestArms Gimmer Hawken and want to refinish the stock. What products would you recommend to strip it?" If it's me, I'd just use cheap clean strip or something. It's not going to hurt it. It's not like it's an original or something.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, guys?
I'm just gonna be the boring guy, boss. I just get one of Birchwood Casey's kits.
Yeah, for stripping it.
I think they have a stripper on it. No,
They
I'm
probably
thinking about the blue ink. Never mind. Is it just strip? Or
Yeah, I just say a Walmart paint stripper.
Yeah.
Is Ethan back?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Well, Colt's all excited in there.
Yeah, probably because of the
let's
storm that's
see.
going on outside.
Hmm.
Yeah, it might be. Doug Duke said, "Always liked the Hall rifle myself." We've had that discussions. We were offered someone to send us one not too long ago. We weren't making videos anymore. Right, Ethan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We also had a same guy who's got these twigs. He was wondering if you wanted to shoot a sharps of his. He's got a lot of sharps rifles.
Original,
I
right?
think. Yeah. He's got one that's got the rawhide wrap on it that's still got the hair on it.
I don't know if I'll shoot that one, but if he sends me one, I'll sure shoot it.
Funny because the rawhide, the hair is worn off where your thumb wraps around the wrist, but everywhere else has still got the hair on it.
I don't think those rawhide wraps were meant to be forever, but they just seem to hang around.
Evidently.
They were probably. Oh, I'll fix it, and then never happened. They didn't have Type Bond back then.
Yeah, no, Type Bond 3 especially. Their wood glue was not food safe.
No, they're horse hoof glue. Hoof glue. Yeah.
Or hide glue.
Yeah. Hide glue. Yeah, that's what I meant. That was what was on that 1777 that Garrett took it apart and the stock came out in two pieces.
I've dealt with a lot of hide glue working on those original ones. They seem to. There was some hide glue in that trapdoor that Sheldon has now, that 68, because it was all shattered up. And I think I left the nails in it. Maybe I didn't. But they had a square-headed horseshoe nails and rawhide wrap and 3 brass tacks that I wish I still had that were in the base of it. Like they had wrapped a lot more rawhide around it. But I took that apart and fixed it where it was actually shootable, because it definitely wasn't very shootable in the condition it was in.
Still haven't shot it.
You got 2 bullets.
That's it.
And I don't know how well they'll shoot, but okay. Oh.
Got some bullets that are about as old as the gun, but I don't think they're going to go off.
They might. They're internal primed, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they might not. So what size TP did you get, Sheldon? You can tell when people are interested in that.
16.
16 foot. Now, how hard is that to put poles up for a 16-foot TP?
Pretty easy. It's been a while since I've done it, but
It takes about 6 people.
2, 1 if you're really good, but I ain't that good. Last one I put up, I think that was about 8 years ago.
It's getting the tripod set up. It's a pain in the butt.
I've kind of noticed that. I watched a few videos. It looked like it was going to be fun. But we'll handle her.
At least like a Lakota style, you got the tripod, well, like a crow style, they use 4. They like to be a little. They act like they're special.
I noticed you and the crow not getting along here lately for some reason. Something about little Bighorn and.
Nah, they're doing the work I don't want to do because I'm gonna go buy TB poles from them.
That's funny. Something about they want the credit for little Bighorn now.
That's just. There's like 5, or there's the Crow Scouts, but they all took off. And then they got shot at by their own people because they got mistaken for Lakota.
No wonder Hollywood made them the bad guys for 20 years.
You know, I finally watched that Mountain Men movie with
Charlton Heston.
Yeah, I could see where Duke picked up his very colorful language in person.
My favorite line in that is where Brian Keith tells Charlton Heston, they get done fighting those Indians. Brian Keith sitting on the log the whole time. Oh, what's his name? Bill? No, what was his name? Why can't I think of his name? Bill Tyler.
Yeah, Bill Tyler.
Over the mountains, Bill Tyler. Losing your win.
I like the buffalo up in there, or not buffalo. There's beavers up there in the mountain, big old beavers. They just sit there in the stream all day and say, "Take me, Bill Tyler."
Jump right in the sack. Take me, Bill Tyler. Take me.
Well, I ain't like the movie quote that I told Gary whenever I ordered that Sharps rifle. Said I can't wait to get out on the range. Say she's out of range, but that old cannon might reach her. Well, Savage Sam reference. Most people probably don't get that one. Mr. Searcy, there's a sequel to Old Yeller a lot of people don't know about. Mr. Searcy's got a Sharps rifle.
Mm-hmm.
A 50 caliber Sharps rifle. Ends up throwing it up over the shoulder of old Slim Pickens and shooting it at like 500 yards.
There you go. You guys can recreate that now.
And then he passes out.
Yeah, one of my childhood memories. I had my inline 50 caliber muzzleloader, and I thought I had a Bill Searcy special there.
Oh no, the Mountain Man. That's pretty excellent.
Butcher Crossing was all right.
Oh God.
Duke likes everything about that except for hammering the bullet into the case.
I was about to say, so Duke, how do you feel about hammering them bullets into them cases?
Well,
without any
they might
lubricant
go
on
into
them?
the case, but they ain't gonna go into the chamber.
There wasn't no lubricant on them bullets. No wonder they had to bring a bucket of water out there.
I will say this. Aside from that, I liked it a lot for what it was. It wasn't over.
Yeah, it wasn't terrible.
There was one thing that also bothered me about that. Whenever he pulls the trigger one time and it's a close-up of him in the lock, and he pulls the trigger and there's no flash, there's no recoil, there's nothing, just the hammer fall, and you just hear kaboom!
90% of the audience will never catch on to that, though.
That's true.
Well, and then they were swapping between, he had an Allen conversion along with that Sharps, and when he's shooting the Allen conversion, then they do the close-ups, and suddenly he's got the Sharps again.
Yeah. I will say, though, that looks...
that opening scene.
Aside from that being a cartridge gun, that looks an awful lot of like the one I just ordered.
Well, it's because they weren't called business rifles yet, but it was the same. Same idea. A round barrel, no frills. Yours is round barrel, isn't it, Sheldon?
No.
So it's not a regular business rifle then.
Yeah. Not a fan of the pistol grip, but it works.
So yours is actually a little more greasy then.
I actually found out pistol grips, they weren't real common, but they were out there.
Yeah.
So
I've
are
seen a picture
shotgun
of
butt
some.
plates.
Yep. I found a picture. I was looking. Where the heck was I looking at? I found it online. This guy had a display of original Sharps rifles that were owned by buffalo hunters down in Texas, and there was two of them with pistol grips and shotgun butt plates.
Hmm.
And that's the only two I've seen on a lot of records from that time period that had pistol grip.
Yeah, they come in kind of later after the 75, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. On Facebook, I follow the Sharps rifle like history page, and the guy on there shares a lot of like originals and stuff. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
I got on that Facebook just to sign up for and meet some of the reenactor guys, and I got invited to the Springfield history rifle page. And nobody obviously knows who I am there, but Richard Homsmere, who's the author, he's there, and he handles things so beautifully, and it's so well done. But there is so much misinformation floating around on that page. It's bad.
Oh, yeah.
I just kind of look at it and go, and people will, and I only got one argument with a guy. I didn't mention anything about what I knew or what I had, but he was going on and on and on. And I was saying on some of those, you need 4.64 bullets. And he was just, you're lying. They've never shot a 4.64 bore. If you had ever seen a trapdoor, you would understand they're all 4.57. I just said, yeah, if I ever look at one, I'll get back with you.
some of them are 5.77. That went up there.
Yeah, I guess the first one is, if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
No, those later ones require bigger bullets, especially the 1888s. A lot of them have really big bores.
I gave you that look because I was expecting you to be like, actually, no, that's a 5.78, and I was going to be like, oh, well.
Oh no, are you talking about the actual bullet I shoot through? That is a 5.90.
See, there it is. I knew it was coming.
If you want to get technical about it, because I had to search for a 5.90 mini ball mold, and it was not easy to find.
Like I said, I've been looking for a ringtail bullet mold for a, what was that one I was looking at? It's a 5.51. Yeah. Because that IAB, those supposedly have got 5.48 to 5.49 diameter. So.
Yeah. Cool Hand said, happy to see you guys again. I wasn't expecting it. Neither were we. We just had a free moment. And Ethan just got his Wi-Fi. We've never had Wi-Fi in the studio. We've always had to film there and then go elsewhere. So
yeah,
he's geared up. Like I said, I have not seen that Colt shooting table in almost 2 years for how much stuff I stacked on it.
Now it's all cleaned up and oiled up. And
it was home to about 15 trapdoors for a year and a half. They just sat on it.
Yeah, that was the first thing I did was I got every single one of them down. That was last weekend. I got every single one of them down and I cleaned them all.
Yep. Caleb's not living in the corner anymore, so you got all kinds of room.
Yep. Yeah, actually, I'm thinking about, I don't know what I'm going to put over there yet. I'm actually thinking about putting a clothes rack over there for all the different uniforms and stuff we've got.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Armor sets and...
Ethan's still waiting on his South Union Mills. I'm getting to the point where South Union Mills is great and I love it and everything, but if you want it by May, you better be ordering it at the end of January because he's backed up.
Yeah. Well, those pair of pants and that vest that I bought, I got them within 4 weeks, but that was in the middle of, I ordered them in November and I got them in December, I think it was.
Yeah. That's pretty good, but I think people start putting their orders in for their spring events.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you're not on the ball, it's going to be a while. I think the last one Noah got was about a 6.5 week wait, but he's about there with his next order. But Ethan should have his in here by the 1st of May. Thereabouts.
I know on his Facebook he did say he was at Appomattox. So I think he's like the only person that ships stuff too. So.
Yeah, and I did notice he said he had some family stuff going down too. So
yeah, I got ordered that trade wool blanket. You know, I had to do payments on that thing, which actually wasn't. It was kind of common back in the day. Surprisingly,
Historically accurate.
yeah.
Speaking of historical accuracy, Duke will get a kick out of this. So I'm going all out with my little arsenal packs. Mind you, I'm not bringing live ammunition to Fort Larned, but I want the little packs, and for that sharp. And I was looking at when they roll them cap up into tubes, they do like a paper cartridge, but it's just full of caps. So I went and downloaded. You can go into the National Archives. You can download copies of Harper's Weekly. And I found a pretty funny article in there from 1864 talking about how these Union troops that were going down the river were being shot at by a whole brigade of rebel snipers on the I can't remember which river that is, but it's in Tennessee. I go, they're hiding up there in a cave up in the rocks, and I thought, I wonder if that was that Jack Henson guy that we always hear about.
Yeah.
Thought that's funny. I was like, I bet you that was Jack Henson right there. A whole brigade of rebel sharpshooters, all armed with Whitworth rifles. I was like, okay, that's a little hard to believe.
Well, what got us on this Sharps kick for this one was we were going through a lot of pictures of, obviously, the 68 treaty, like Sheldon was just talking about, going through those California Joe Milner pictures, and obviously he's got one in about every picture you ever see, but Duke was telling me that we got to start questioning some of it because True West Magazine's pictures of California Joe Milner aren't all California Joe Milner. So what'd you say?
The one guy, he's definitely not, because somebody else, I don't remember who they identified it as, but it was not California Joe.
Yeah, the clean-shaven picture you were saying.
Yeah, or he's got just a mustache.
Mm-hmm.
That is not California Joe.
But you did say that the one where he's in full uniform standing behind Custer, that one might not be him either.
No, that one is him. When he's standing behind Custer, he's in civilian clothes. It's the one. Yeah. There's a guy that's in full uniform in a different picture.
Standing behind Custer.
He's got
that one too, I think.
No. The one I'm talking about, he's not. He's standing next to a horse and he's got a Sharps rifle.
Yeah.
But he's in full Union uniform, and we don't think that's him because there's accounts of California Joe being out in Colorado and Kansas during the Civil War, and that picture was supposedly taken back east somewhere because supposedly the story is he was part of the Burden's sharpshooters.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that's him.
Yeah. Well,
it looks a lot like him.
I like the picture of him with the mules, and you actually put some names to the other guys, which I was shocked to see that Billy Comstock, the famous Fort Wallace scout, was one of the guys in that picture on the far left-hand side.
Yep.
Let's see if I can drag that up. I might be able to drag that up.
Yeah, if you look on that, I might still have it uploaded over there in the pictures on the side.
Can't use them anymore because now you got to pay to do that, even though they're already there. Yeah, that was a shock. Let's see.
Can you still do a share screen?
Yeah, I can. I figured out how to do it. I just have to. I have to find it online. All right, so let me get here a few pictures. So this is the one. All right, I got a few of them here. Let's see. Save that one, and there's the one with him behind Custer. Save that one. And there's the famous one. Save that one. All right, so now we go to our downloads and open the file.
I'm gonna grab something real quick.
Okay. Oopsie, where'd we go? Okay, there we are. I need to find those pictures. There's that one. There's that one. I was not prepared for this. There's that one. I really kind of want to find. Hang on just a second. If I can find that one that we were talking about. Yeah, there he is.
There's also that picture of him. I think he's hiding. He's laying on the ground behind a rock. It's an obviously staged picture, but he's got a laying on his back with a. I'm pretty sure it's a '63 Springfield infantry rifle. Sharp rifle.
The one no, that's a Sharps.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. 1863 Sharps infantry model.
Yeah.
3-barrel band one.
Yep, because that's the one he's got in the picture of him on the mules.
Yeah.
The famous picture. I'm just trying to see. There was a. What did I spell here somewhere? Oh, okay. I gotta go to the historic pictures. All right. Everything keeps changing. Yeah, this one right here. It's not Custer he's behind. He's standing by a horse behind somebody else. I see what you're saying now.
Yep. And then there's another one of them in a blue uniform standing next to a horse. And yeah, then there's a couple of them in the blue uniform, but there's question, like I said, if that's actually him.
Yeah. There we go. Okay, maybe I can figure this out now. Let's see. If I kill this and I full screen this. All right, present image files. That's not it. Downloads, no. Pictures. Where'd they go? Desktop. All right, so this is the picture I was thinking of that you said might not be him. Right here, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking. Yeah. Yeah, that one may not be him.
Yeah, we don't know about that. But anyway, back to the famous picture here. Let's see. The great picture, the good picture.
So, Duke, you gonna make those leopard print holsters?
Someday, maybe. Yeah, that one's definitely him.
Yeah. It's interesting because we have the we have California Joe on the very far right, and then Billy Comstock, the famous scout who went into the buffalo hunt game against Buffalo Bill. Now, what's interesting is Billy Comstock was known to carry a Henry in this time period, so I don't see it.
Yeah, it could be in a scabbard on the other side of the horse.
Very well could be. Who do we got? You were going through these. Do you remember who those other names were?
Silent Jack Corbin in there.
So the guy that's second from the right, that's Ed Greer, Bill Gary's mixed blood son. If I remember right, Bill Gary's the guy that blew himself up on a wagon because he's smoking a pipe and an ember dropped in a powder keg and blew up the wagon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then, God, I can't remember the guy's name. It's right next to California Joe, but it's not.
It's not
Silent Jack.
We thought maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Atkinson. Hang on a second. I might cut out here. I gotta look that back up again. See if I can...
Well, evidently.
Shot Sheila said they didn't make a 63 rifle. Well, my study is they didn't make a military 63 rifle, but they did make civilian sporting what we call 63 rifles just because they were in that time period without a patch box, so they're considered 63s. Rowan. Oh, yeah, back in that other picture. I guess so.
Our friend with the milling machine must be watching because he just sent me a text and said he had a Christmas tree Sharps bullet mold.
Yeah, that's
may have to borrow it from him.
According to Shot Shula.
Yeah.
Yeah, Thomas Adkins.
Where's? Oh, is that the other guy? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other guy.
Oh, well, I don't know if that one's a mule. It looks like 2 horses and 2 mules. It's kind of interesting because California Joe is known to own really fast racehorse, right? But he rode a mule everywhere where he had to depend on it. I don't think he has his vest on in that picture. He does. It's just not buttoned. I was trying to get Duke to find one of those pipes.
One is what?
You know, I've looked and I found one that was somewhat close to it, and it's $100 pipe.
Okay, so this is the Custer picture. I like his hat in this picture.
Yeah.
Man, there were times when he just looked like death warmed over, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing a good stiff drink won't fix, right?
That one must have been the 74 expedition.
Yeah.
The
that
Yellowstone
was-
campaign? Or is that? No,
Yeah,
sorry,
'cause-
Black Hills.
Black Hills, because both of those scouts have the nickel-plated Colts that Custer gave them.
I'm still kind of on the thing that they weren't nickel plated.
You know, I've looked at this picture 1,000 times and never noticed that. That one looks like it's got a top strap. The one on the left there.
Yeah, they're both.
Yeah, they're 73 single actions.
They are?
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Because I was seeing the ejector rod on this one. I'd like to see an actual good photo of the chair he's sitting on.
Looks like this one is folding ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
What's that, Sheldon? What's that? The Indian is standing up in the middle. What's that circle thing on his?
Probably just a medallion or something.
Just some kind of medallion.
It could. I mean, it could just be a medallion. That's what I'm gonna go with, just because they like being glittery.
Once again, California Joe not dressed in his vest.
Yep.
Kind of reminds me of somebody else I know. He probably didn't get let into the mess hall either.
He wasn't disarmed for horse feed.
Oh, let's see. I had one or two more here. I grabbed. Where'd they go? Oh, this is the one that you think you know for sure. Probably not him.
Yeah, that's the one that. Yeah, I've somebody identified him as somebody else.
Well, one thing's for sure. This is in the era of the big Sharps calibers.
Yeah. That's a buffalo hunter from. He's a buffalo hunter down in Texas. I cannot think of what the name of it was that they come up with it, but yeah, it's not California Joe.
Just True West Magazine has that one wrong.
Yeah, it's True West Magazine ain't always true.
And it ain't always West.
Yeah.
It is a magazine.
I think they're good if you just want to sit down and read something.
Yeah, sometimes they give you a good something to look into a little further, but that's about it.
Oh, that's Wild West magazine we got back there.
Soylent Green asked if that was a rolling block on the ground. It kind of looks like it.
Yeah,
it
it
like
is.
Custer's rolling
Yeah, that's
block.
true. That's Custer's rolling block.
If you go to YouTube on Midway USA's channel, they have a whole build series on making Custer's rolling block.
Yeah, they
Maybe.
go all out on that one.
Mm-hmm.
That
Maybe
dog
that's why.
he was going to be famous.
Maybe that's why Custer died at Little Bighorn. He had a rolling block.
I would not put it up to that.
Well, Garrett, don't you know? If they would all had Schofields, they would have survived. I heard that one the other day. They were all armed with Schofields. They would have survived because they could reload it faster.
Custer would have taken those Gatling guns, he would have survived because they just slowed him down enough. He wouldn't have got there in time.
That was exactly what I told the fellow who said they would have survived if they were carrying Schofields.
Yeah, I've been into that. Debate so much that it's not even fun to debate anymore.
Yeah, I still think
It's always fun to debate.
I still think of Garrett's comment that one time says, no matter what he does, his live streams deviate to a little Bighorn at least once.
Oh. Let's see.
I would recommend reading Wooden Leg's book. I mean, that's me.
Yeah, it's pretty good tale. And they kind of claim in that only about a quarter of them were armed with repeaters, right?
I'd believe it.
Yep. A lot more muzzleloaders and bows there
Lot.
than people give credit for.
A lot of
But if
layman's.
you take a quarter of 1,200, which is what, 400?
Mm-hmm. Still a lot.
If you've got 400 repeaters against 500 single shots, you're still SOL.
Mm-hmm.
Well, technically, 500 single shots and 6 rounds of 45 Colt. Don't forget that. They got 7 shots.
No, that's true. Well, you got 400 repeaters and 1,200 bows.
Let's put it this way: 1,200 versus 260. You're just not going to get it done.
That's the number you got to look at.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think so. Oh, Solitude.
Like, my thing that was interesting with me with Wooden Leg is he talks about he only went in with a revolver because all his stuff got burnt up by Reynolds.
Yeah. And also, I like to remind you to take those quarter of rifles that are there, of everybody that has repeating rifles, now split that up between Custer and Reno. Now
Yep.
you got even less, maybe.
Well, that's one of those things. If Custer would have kept his entire division together, they would have got wiped out. It just took a little longer. If he'd taken the 2nd Cavalry, they'd have got wiped out. It just took even longer than that.
If he'd have just camped up there with Benteen and waited for them to come to him, he would have survived. Dug in. Had some cover.
You mean to say the Schofields wouldn't have saved him? Man, I've been lied to.
No. No.
Like one thing I always end up reading is the charge at the Medicine Tail Coulee, because there's like 4 different white bulls at that fight and they all get mixed up. I don't think one up there, but they get shot. I think it was True West or the other magazine Ethan mentioned, but they combined all 3 of them, or 2 of them, like the 2 big ones. But there's a Northern Cheyenne, he gets called Ice, but he gets called White Bull, and his story gets mixed up with an Oglala named White Cow Bull, and White Cow Bull and White Bull, the mini Conju, their stories get mixed up, and then I think there's a Sans Arc White Bull, and he gets mixed in with all the other 2. So it's just like, it would be cool to actually get everything, like laid out, and because like if you type in White Bull, you're gonna see a picture of I think the Sans Arc. And he's a lot older in the 1870s, and he doesn't look like the one that Vestal wrote a book on.
Yeah.
And then White Cow Bull made, he says he killed Custer, but he just says he killed someone with blonde hair.
That could have been Benteen.
And then I think the White Bull, the mini Conju, mentions thinking he killed a soldier chief, but he's not sure. But then, but like they said, everyone was shooting, so they didn't know who they were shooting at. So,
City Prepper said if he had an AR, I'm gonna tell you a sad thing. There's a lot of reports of Benteen's guys and Reno's guys. It wouldn't matter what they have because most of them shot the ground 12 feet in front of them when they pulled the trigger. And that's a fact. That's a documented fact. They weren't trained. They were flinching all over the place. They couldn't hit anything. The troops themselves were not trained at the time to handle it. If they'd have had ARs, they'd have just shot more bullets into the dirt. That's all they would have done.
Ammunition capacity and rate of fire are no excuse for poor marksmanship.
I would say there's no excuse for poor tactics.
Now, there is an exception
you
to that.
Remember, in 76, most of the 2nd Cavalry is new raw recruits, majority of them. And at that time, they're still training them like they do in the Civil War. It doesn't matter if you hit anything. You just need to be able to function a gun, because a wall of lead at the enemy, somebody's going to hit something.
Yeah.
And that is the whole reason why when Custer and, Custer getting wiped out, Crook running through most of his ammunition at Rosebud is the whole reason why the Army decided to adopt a marksmanship program.
And improve ammunition, and improve the rifle sights, and improve the training.
Because during basic training, at that time, you got 3 rounds. That is what you were allotted for training on the shooting part of the gun. Was 3 rounds. And then you only really, the Army only required you shoot 3 rounds a year to prove that you still knew how to function the gun. Now, units could have target practice outside of that, and there were units that did do that, but really they were only required to do 3 rounds a year.
Yep.
And after that, they started the marksmanship program and really increased that number.
So let's put this in modern terms. Ethan's been in some scrapes overseas, not to get into that, but if you took your AR-15s, you and 200 guys, and wound up in the middle of a village and then back up on a bare hill with no cover against an entire 2,000 warriors or 2,000 people fighting you with Mosin and guns, who's going to win?
Well, here's the other thing. They're also on horseback coming as fast as they can.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, it's no way. There comes a point when it doesn't matter really how much technology you've got. If you're outnumbered so badly that you're still going to get annihilated.
Cover. No cover.
Yeah.
Reno lived because
now,
he had cover.
A lot of people will then say, well, what about you go to Africa, Battle of Islandwana, or, Rorke's Drift, which Islandwana is a bad example because they got absolutely destroyed there. Rorke's Drift, well, here's the difference. They had cover. That's the difference. They had walls. They had things they could kind of hide behind. And the enemy didn't have horses, although they could run pretty fast and pretty far. So, yeah, there comes to a point where it doesn't matter how many ARs or what kind of fancy toys you got. If you got, it's like the old saying about World War II. You know how the Russians defeated the Tiger tank? They found out that it held 95 shells, so they sent in 96 T-34s.
That's actually pretty good.
Yeah,
I never heard that.
Like Duke mentioned, the recruits majority of them being raw.
Yeah.
Then like example is I'm 28. If I was living back then, I already would have had 12 years of fighting behind me. So
yeah,
yep.
And then usually nowadays you give a kid your son or whatever like a BB gun. Make sure they don't shoot themselves, but usually about 5 years old, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And back then they would have got a bow and arrow since 5 years old. So you jump up. Was that 23 years of learning how to snap shoot a bow? Yeah, you would have been SOL.
Well, we've covered this subject up and down, left and right,
yes,
every angle over the few years. But one question I've never asked Sheldon, and you've read, obviously, there's oral histories and there's more of that too. But if Custer had parked on that hill with Benteen and let him go, would they have attacked him? If they'd have just been like, they're letting us go to Canada, or they're letting us get out of this valley, or do you think they would have just formed up and rode out?
They would have attacked him because they attacked Crook at Rosebud.
Well,
and Crook was 20-some miles away.
I understand that, but I guess the question would be, would they be more flight than fight at that point because their family's there with them?
If they probably would have fought them until they knew their families were out and safe, and then the stragglers would have been younger guys trying to get war honors, and then they probably would have left after they got bored.
Yeah, it's because that's kind of what happened with Benteen, right? By the time they got to him, far enough from their families, they're not so worried about it.
They were not really attacking Benteen to wipe out Benteen. They were attacking Benteen to hold him off. But if they had all decided to surround Benteen like they did Custer, it didn't matter that Benteen had time to dig in, because Benteen had 3 companies. Custer had 5 up on the hill. They would have.
He had 212 guys with him, right? 212 with him alone, and then the rest of them that got killed with Reno.
Yeah,
260 died that day.
They would have wiped them out in short order. I mean, they might have lasted a little longer, being they were dug in, but they could have wiped out Benteen. They could have taken the entire 7th Cavalry if they wanted to. By that point, it was just hold them off so we can get out of here.
But and that's what, because everybody even today pictures this as this was a revenge. Yeah, and maybe it was a little bit of a revenge for Washita and whatnot. This is a big war party that we just, that Custer poked and they got mad. And I think there's a whole lot more of them feeling like this was a literal home invasion.
Yeah.
This was, and I'm not talking about all the territories. Custer rode right into the home, right into the village, and he didn't get to the end. He got to the middle, way bigger than he had anticipated. He got back up on a hill with zero cover and stopped.
Yeah, it's like what Duke said that one time. When the guys you hired say, don't do it, don't do it.
It's 6 inches. We found the trail. Follow it. It's 6 inches deep and 100 yards wide.
Yeah.
It'll be easy to follow.
Yeah. Have you found their trail yet? It's 100 yards wide and it looks like a plowed field. That might be the sign that we are not in the right spot.
Yeah.
Well, that one trail they found was 300 yards wide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they'd found 3 trails the day before.
And they know we're here, guys.
Yeah,
they know we're here.
Yeah. Now, there is, if you watch Son of the Morning Star, which obviously it's still a movie or whatever, it's not get everything right. But there's a lot of things, and the more times you watch it, because there's so much reenactor influence in it, I love it. But the more times you watch it, the more things you pick up on. And I believe they did very well in one of those last lines by Libby Custer when he's charging down the hill, where she says Custer led 11 charges in the United States Civil War and spent 10 years riding across the plains and never once retreated. And then one day I was watching that and it clicked with me and I was like, that's it. He's never lost.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't think he can lose.
Yep.
Very, very much like a lot of people today who would send us into war with a million other people, not to get political, but they would be like, we can't lose, we're America. That's exactly what was running through his head.
Yeah.
We can't lose. Ride through the nations with 80 men, right? Whether they said that or not historically, I don't know. Same principle, same thought pattern, same we can't lose because we've never lost.
That would never happen to me, Brigade.
And the thing was, it almost did happen to him at the Washita.
Yeah. He had to leave a few people there, as I recall.
Yeah, because they left Major Elliott's company out in the middle of nowhere. Major Elliott got wiped out, but while they were going through the village kind of mopping up, it was like all of a sudden you've got all kinds of different groups. You've got Comanches, other Cheyennes showing up on the hills around. That's why Custer staggered the captives throughout the column so that they wouldn't be fired on. And it's like, we got to get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, once you're in Washita, you're pretty deep in there. It's a long
because that was about the same thing. There's almost the same number of people. It's just they're stretched out over a bigger area. It's a little bit smaller groups, but Custer, if he hadn't staggered the captives, if he hadn't taken captives, staggered them through the column, I don't think he would have left Washita.
It was very possible, but it was a grand victory.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get to a few of these comments before we go on here, because I got to read this. Solitude 731 said, rolling block is better than trapdoor. Rolling block is better than trapdoor and the sharps. And
Whoa.
Yeah. Jake said, yeah, well, that's like your opinion, man. I'm not going to argue it, but I'm going to agree with Jake and the dude Jake on that.
I mean, technically, we have seen a case head separation in a sharps, and we have seen a trapdoor shoot a non-sealed cartridge, and I can tell you which one handled the escaping gases better.
Case head separation,
yeah.
Go ahead, dude.
I was going to say, I've never had a Springfield and I've never had a Sharps shoot hot gas back in my face.
It's funny because I was reading some original Sharps advertisements, and the advertisements were literally like, better than the rolling block because it doesn't shoot backwards. And I know what they're talking about. The rolling block can't. I like them all the same. I will say this, the rolling block if you're just going to give it to a bunch of guys, you don't care if they shoot themselves because it's not on half cock. Go for it. A lot of foreign military, sure, that was great for that. Trapdoor was great for the United States. Ejection, repeat firepower, really worked out pretty well for them in most cases. The Sharps, that is probably the greatest civilian long-range marksman rifle of the time. You know, it's just set up better. But each of those things are great in their own thing. They all work for what they did, right? And none of them should have replaced the other for anything. Let's see. Soylent Green said, or Soylent said, Custer is a bummer, man. Soylent Green said, speed is fine, accuracy is final. Wyatt Earp. That's why Blunt's musketry book came out shortly after, and the War Department instituted the shooting competition program to encourage practice after Little Bighorn. City Prepper said, okay, throw in a couple grenades with the ARs. I still don't think you're going to get it done.
Yeah.
Soylent Green said there's a famous story of one tiger taking out 30-something T-34s when it got attacked by 50 of them during the Battle of Kursk. Mark Felton has a video on it. They counted over 300 shells hit on the tiger after the battle. Oh, Dad sent me something.
I was going to say another World War II reference about being outnumbered.
I don't know if I can get it off my phone, Dad. If you can post it on the internet somewhere, maybe I can get it off of there.
You guys might be getting a little storm ambience out here. Little thunders are rolling pretty good out there. It sounds like it's raining now.
Got some ASMR.
I had to I had to block up the door. The wind was blowing it open.
Timber Drifter said, haven't seen you fellas in a while. I'll have to come back and watch the replay. Solitude has a point here I'd like to talk on too. Oh, hi, Doc. My land of season said, evening, gents. Never been shot in the face with my Pedersoli. Never heard of the gas problem. Oh, go back and check some of the reports on the early trapdoor or rolling blocks from the 1860s. And then if you don't believe that, go to Duke's channel and watch shoot an original rolling block from the 1860s and watch it blow powder back in Duke's face.
Yeah, my forehead turned black.
What the problem with those was they had some chamber spec issues. They had some chambers. A lot of chambers were, how do I put this, too wide for the case, and the case, instead of expanding, would separate.
What? Well, it was all cartridges in the 1860s. Didn't matter if it was something from a rolling block, a Sharps, a trapdoor. All those copper cartridges that were cheaper that the military wanted to adopt had case head separation issues. Didn't matter what gun they were in.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is,
and there's no gas ports. It's all coming straight back.
But what I'm saying is the rolling block actually had that issue worse. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's well documented to this day. A lot of times they'll tell you if you get a 43 Spanish rolling block, you may want to check that chamber because sometimes they're a little wider than they need to be. Get a chamber casting.
Anyway, this comment said Custer's defeat has nothing to do with what guns he had. It has to do with the man himself and the mistakes he made.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You want to elaborate, Sheldon?
Listen to your scouts, aka the guys you hired.
The guys have been.
Well, you know,
maybe don't charge over that hill.
Yeah, when they say there's enough horses out on the plains, they look like wiggling worms, and you see 300-yard wide
path,
plowed field.
You just you just have to sit there and think about it. Is this worth?
And then don't send Reno way over there, and then try to send a messenger that doesn't speak English to tell him when to come up.
Like you have to sit there and think to yourself, is this gonna make me more of a man if I win, or is it gonna make me look dumb if I lose? Sometimes you just gotta take the loss, you know.
I think Custer at that point, and obviously I can't tell you what he was thinking, but I think that he was so desperate to replace Grant to be something big. Grant had worked him in and worked him out and worn him out. And I think that he thought in some way in his mind, if I can just pull off this one big battle, just one big battle. You think so, dude?
Yeah, that was probably a lot of it, but Gotta remember those. Custer wasn't that ambitious because Grattan only took 20 men. Fetterman took 80, and Custer took 5 companies.
But he was
So it's not
trying to
like
get
he
more
was
vicious.
that ambitious.
If he'd have had more time, he'd have probably split them again.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if he waited like another week and just start picking them off like they did later on in the year, he would have been fine.
Yeah. Let him run and then get your setting bull and your crazy horse or whatever it is you're after, and don't die.
Because like if you, because Woodland Lake's like the one book I've read recently, so it's more fresh in my mind. But that little southeast corner of Montana, from below Miles City to Sheridan, Wyoming, to I-90 to the border of North and South Dakota, that little Powder River country, that is what the Northern Cheyenne were basically going circles around. That's all they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about going to basically where Ashland, Montana is now, to Broadus, to what the heck's that time, Bernie, or they'd be like, oh, we camped here and this is where so and so lives now. And like that's the only area that they were going around. So basically, they were having trouble finding game, and this is just the Northern Cheyennes. There might have been like 1,200 of them, majority women and kids.
Mm-hmm.
So they would have just, they were talking about surrendering because there was no real food or anything left.
Yeah, they couldn't survive there long.
Yeah.
When you think about it and you read, obviously I haven't read all the Indians' accounts, but when you read even Benteen stuff he said about it, or Reno, that hill where Custer was dirt. There wasn't even a weed.
A nice bald hill.
The horses ate it all already.
Yep.
How many horses do you think were in that herd?
A lot.
Yeah.
10,000?
Way more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
They
there was
didn't even
even
try to go like over the hill.
one of the native accounts I read too said that it was getting so tight up there that Sitting Bull had put orders out that nobody was to go and hunt without basically Sitting Bull's permission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were keeping that pretty strict because they were just running out of resources so fast.
Well, how long were they there? A week?
Yeah, because they had just got there just a day or two before Rosebud.
Mm-hmm. And they were on their way to leave that day.
Well,
yeah, they were starting to pack up.
Yeah, it sounds like they were leaving because I think one camp took off, but they turned around. Another camp at Yankton took off and just left, went back down to Red Cloud Agency.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because if I remember right, the woman that they tell the story of in the Son of the Morning Star, her account says that they were starting to pack up that day.
Yeah.
And then, but what's his name? Wolf Chief Cheyenne and Woodland Lake book arrived like the day after, like the 26th, and he almost got killed because they thought he was a spy. The Lakota thought he was a spy, so and Woodland Lake says back then he was able to speak Lakota and Cheyenne, so he had to go with the fused ass situation.
Turkey Creek was talking about that. His father-in-law, Turkey Creek talking about his father-in-law in Morning Star waxing his handlebar mustache. Every time I watch that, people probably get tired of me. I always point that out and say, "Hey, I know a connection." But yeah, Son of the Morning Star was so good because I think it was because they actually had people that knew what they were doing and could tell the story without a bunch of self-loathing.
Oh, it's funny. Is one of my buddies up there from Fort Laramie. He was in a lot of movies at that time, but for whatever reason, he didn't get to be in Son of the Morning Star. But he was in Lakota Woman. And he was in the Crazy Horse movie that you can't find.
Mm-hmm. You guys can't find. I got 2 copies.
Yeah, he got killed twice in that movie.
Imagine that.
Yeah, and that one, he got killed twice. He died at Fetterman and he died at Grattan.
Okay, so Sheldon, was your family involved in Son of the Morning Star? I know they were involved in a lot of movies, but not that one.
Son of the Morning Star, according to Bad Hand, it was mainly Crow and Cheyenne actors, extras, because they live in the area.
Yeah,
right.
I asked my dad because he was his early 20s when all those were being made, and he was horseback rider, all that stuff, cowboy. Closest I got is I have a uncle that was in a Dodge Dakota commercial back in '91 or '2.
Well, who was the family
Nice.
member that was involved with everybody die on the one first shot?
Oh, that was he would, under I guess white people terms, he'd be considered great uncle, but I call him grandpa.
Yeah.
Adolf Buber. They were filming How the West Was Won. And it was a Custer fight, and he said, that all the Indians lined up, and it was like late '50s when they were filming it. So they and no one wanted to fall off the horse because that stings, hurts.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
So the director was like, "All right, the first man to fall off their horse at the sound of a gunshot, gets $50. A lot of money back then.
They all died.
Yeah, they charged. Said, "Yeah, we all look good. That gun went off, and everyone bit it."
the whole Sioux Nation.
That's what he said.
Now that's what they need to do. They need to find that gun, and if Custer would have had that gun at the Little Bighorn, he won.
He said, "Yeah, that's how the West was won. One bullet took out the entire Sioux."
Yep.
Yes, a 7-barrel knock volley gun just went through them all.
Yeah. Soylent Green says, I have an 1866 carbine, talking about the gas coming back, that does that in 45 Colt. The case doesn't seal the chamber, and I get black powder in my face. My 1873 field. We've run into that. Didn't you say that the best solution for that is to anneal, Sheldon?
Yeah.
You anneal the case?
Hey.
Uberti does a thing where the chamber's just a little wide.
Yeah.
And then the 45 Colt doesn't, expand like 44-40.
Here's the funny thing. I was told, and they were right when I was shooting that Merrill carbine video. If you look at the slow motion, there's a lot of gas that comes back in my face out of that little carbine. But I didn't really notice it, and I think it's just because I've shot flintlock so much in my life that I'm kind of expecting it.
Mm-hmm. So
they blow back a little bit.
Now, the worst blowback I had was actually on a flintlock, and we had a flint that was a little too long.
Yeah.
It was a Northwest trade gun. It was made by North Star. Anyway, it was one of the really good ones. But yeah, we had a flint that was too long, and I fired that thing, and that flint scraped down, put off a lot of sparks, but it got down to the bottom of that frizz, and then it locked up and bound it. So instead of that frizz flying all the way open, it stayed closed, and then that gas come out, and it comes straight back and right into my face.
Yeah. I got one over here that if you're not careful, you can get a little bit come back at you. One of my latest acquisitions up here on the wall.
So can I show something off real quick before we get into flintlocks?
Go ahead.
This has been taking me a while because I got tired of doing it, so I stopped doing it for like 3 weeks there.
Woo!
Almost done, but I ran out of beads last night. So
is that your leggings?
No, this is for the shirt. It's supposed to go like that.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So
now, did you actually do that, or did you get that?
She did one of them.
Oh, okay.
She did one of them. I did this one and the 2 arm ones. That's a lot.
Better get her done before learned.
We're hoping.
I've heard that a lot here lately.
Yeah.
We've been working on getting it done before learning pretty hard.
So it's hopefully everything will get done. Hopefully.
I'm trying, Dad. Let's see if I can get it.
There's been here. This was going to be a surprise for y'all when I got there, but it's right here. Making a breastplate, and so far I got that much done.
Hey, you're doing good.
Ooh.
And then I have to put a tax in, and then someone's going to try to either buy it off me because anytime I post something on my Facebook, it's like, oh, how much you want for that? I was like,
I used to have a friend that would come down from Dakota as well. He was a friend's friend, and he would tell me that I had a bunch of those breastplates, and he'd come down with a big truckload and just sell this stuff. And then I found out it was all plastic.
Yeah, the ones I'm using are actual shells off of like a little mollusk.
Yeah.
They would have been more common back then, and then like the ones you see like those plastic ones, like the shape of them.
Mm-hmm.
They did exist at the time, but they were like super expensive because like one family was making them out in New Jersey, and they were being made out of conch shells, like the lip of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point, I think in the 1880s, they moved to cow bone. Yeah, I found a whole book about it, so I'm starting reading it. I guess originally what got them going was because the tribes, especially I think the Omaha and Pawnee, were using pipe stems, like little pipe stems.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and that got some gears turning.
Where did you go? I may have it finally.
But yeah, I got those beaded things done. That's a lot. I've redone like that one. I've redone sections multiple times to the point where I was like, nah, I don't want to do this no more. But I'm almost done.
I know how that is.
I felt
Got
bad
your arrows done yet?
I got one.
He's got one. That's all you need. All you need is one for that deserter.
Yeah. my hands are full with that and the shooting bag
and he's still got to go visit the crow and get his poles.
That too.
Let's see. I'm still trying to find it.
Because I got the arm ones done within roughly a week and a half. But this,
my dad wanted you to see this, Sheldon. He sat down and he just kind of drew that from a memory and a picture.
That's cool.
Of Sitting Bull. What do you think? Look pretty good.
Yeah, better than anything I can do. That's for sure.
He's pretty good about such things.
That's good. That's a good one.
We know what Sitting Bull look like, but we don't know what Crazy Horse actually look like, do we?
Nope.
No matter what they say.
Nope. What's his name? Michael Badhand and one of his buddies. They have like a whole article about. They basically tore apart that picture of Crazy Horse.
Mm-hmm.
Everything about him says he's a Wild West performer.
Yeah.
Well, he was wild. He was in the West, and sometimes he really did perform.
There's only one picture that's kind of believable, and that guy does have a scar on his cheek.
Everything I read was like a very prominent scar. So,
yeah, this guy, his head is kind of turned to where you can't see the scar real well.
Yeah,
but you can see enough to tell that there's some mark on his cheekbone.
And then some of the stories I've been hearing, especially from like some of the Richard family, because they got like because I forgot how it went, but they were like considered him like a real close cousin or something. But like in their stories, they say that he wasn't like a little pale, lean guy. That actually he was kind of short and dark. But
yeah. Joshua Harris said, when is Fort Larned? That's May.
24th.
Some of us, anyway, at least for sure.
18th, 19th, and 20th.
No, 23rd, May 23rd through 26th, Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, okay.
Yeah, 18th, 19th, and 20th is that's the first of the week beforehand.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just going off because that was what you sent me. Boy, it's a good thing he asked that question. I was about to be there real early and leave real early too.
Well, you'd be there about the time Sheldon set his tent up. His TP up. Can't leave till
Hey, boys.
Like I was talking with one of the I don't know how to say it without sounding like a asshole. What? Sorry for cussing, but he's a white guy. You know, he admits he is, but he dresses up like a native and stuff. And he's really good. You know, I've been asking him about pointers because he's been doing that for like 20, 30 years. Real nice guy. Really good guy. What was I going on with this? Yeah, I think he's in Kansas. That's how much I know. He says he does do stuff at Fort Larned.
Mm-hmm.
And according to him, the Indian saddle that's inside the museum at Fort Larned, he made that. And he said he saw my picture, the one I think Garrett uploaded, and he was trying to figure out who I was because I just pop out of nowhere wearing those big plates, and I think that's what he got. He caught
You
his
tell him
attention.
you're not a pretendian.
He's a good guy, so I really don't. There's a lot more of those than actual Indians doing this.
No kidding, they're absolutely.
And I'm asking them for a question, help. And, they actually did the research, and I'm too lazy. I'd rather just ask.
Let's see. By Land and Sea said, I have a friend who just bought a Hall rifle, and I wasn't expecting the gas blowback on it. Fun to shoot, though.
Yeah.
By Land and Sea. Oh, Soylent Green said the drawing was good. I have a friend who just bought a Hall, and they let me shoot it. Didn't expect gas blowback. Should have, but didn't. It really caught me by surprise. Fun to shoot, though. Dad said the old chiefs, when he about that drawing, he was thinking that they had a lot of character in their face lines. It's very interesting for him to draw. Joshua Harris said, I wish I could make it, but I'm going to be in Wyoming that week, going bear hunting, not hunting, just a camera guy.
Oh.
Cool.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah. You're going to do it with a flintlock, it'd be even funner.
It'll be much more of an adventure. By the time he turns around and comes at you and you hear a clack. Whoop. I've done that while deer hunting. What's funny is I always thought it was interesting.
You about got me, dime drawer. I read that pretty. I had to read that several times. You about got me there.
Had another one of them, huh? No,
Yeah.
I always thought it was funny how these deer hunters spend thousands and thousands of dollars to get scent cover and camouflage and this and that and the other, and they're trying to be real quiet. And I went deer hunting with old Char one year, and I remember popping up over a creek bank on a doe about 20 yards away. She was munching on some wheat, and I lined up. This was before I case hardened the frizzen. I lined up, and I pulled the trigger, and I got a clack. She turned around. She just sat there and looked at me for about 10 seconds, went back to eating wheat. I was like, these animals sometimes are not the brightest.
No. My favorite one was back. I was 19. Gave up hunting for the day. The Ford Ranger I was driving had a squealy power steering pump. So you could hear me coming over a hill. I stopped and I see this doe. I was looking at it like, I do have a doe tag. I had both doe and a buck tag. One was for my aunt. So I get out. I just walk up to him, just staring at it like, should I? I'm just kind of tired. I want to do this. I got class in like 3 hours.
You're gonna have to scratch that high.
And then it saw me. It stared. It took off. It stopped. It looked at me. Looked behind it, like further behind it, and it did that 2 more times. I was like, "The heck is it looking at?" So I look, and there's a big buck just walking. Like, oh, she sold you out, buddy.
Well, the funnest one I had was last October, and I was out there at my buddy's place there in Wyoming, and we was walking through his one cornfield because they run a pipe for irrigation through the one cornfield, so they've got a spot about 15 yards wide. You can walk through. It's just a lane through there, and I'm walking through, and my buddy's walking on the outside edge of the field, and all of a sudden this big doe mule deer runs in front of me. Of course, I got whitetail tags. And I thought, all right, she's come along. And then the fawn steps out. So I just stand there and look at him. And that fawn looks at me. And then he freaking runs up to me, stops right in front of me. And I've got my gun at the ready because I wasn't sure if a whitetail would pop out because we'd seen him there the day before. And he runs up to me, stops, right? I could reach out and touch him. He sticks his nose up on the end of my muzzle, licks it, sits there and kind of smacks his jaws a little bit, and then my buddy moves and he takes off into the cornfield.
He's like, maybe if I show them I'm really friendly, they won't shoot me.
I'm sitting there, I'm like, I should have just had a rope. I could have Red Dead Redemption this.
Roped him.
About the most interesting one I had was, I mean, we shot a lot of deer. I think I had 33 or something. I couldn't afford to hunt them if I wanted to, but I've almost shot so many that it's not fun anymore. But I do remember we decided to get real sportsman-like one year, or at least I did. And I told Ethan, because I was hunting with an open-sighted, but still like one of the most accurate 30-06s. It was a
1917
Remington, yep. And it was just a tack driver with the ammo I had in it. And Ethan's hunting with the Lee Enfield, and Caleb is hunting with the M1 Grand. And we gave up setting and waiting on deer years ago because, like I said, that got boring. And so we got to where we would just spot and stock. And we're spot and stock in this creek. And I tell the boys, we're real sportsmen. We're in the middle of regular season. We all got both tags. But I was like, we're going to be real sportsmen. We are not shooting bucks today. Only does.
Yep.
Only what we thought considered to be older does because it's going to be eaten. And Ethan's like, are you sure? And I said, yeah. And because Ethan and Caleb haven't been doing this long as me, so they're more willing to shoot.
I still have a mental picture of this too. Of the white.
Whatever you do not shoot a buck. So we're creeping over this creek bank and these does pop up. And I remember seeing these heads and I was like, I'll just pick the right one because I could headshot one of these about 40 yards. This is going to be the easiest shot. And Mr. Big Buck pops up right behind him. I mean, this is a big buck. And I look at Ethan, and he looks at me, and I look at Caleb, and I said, sorry, guys, I pulled up shot.
What are you talking about? Looked at us. There was no hesitation in your voice. You automatically threw up. And like I said, I have a mental picture. I have a mental picture of white hair floating down out of the air, coming out of the backside, the other side of that deer where that bullet went out.
By the way, he was quite a ways behind the does. That was like a 75 yard. And I knew if I didn't snapshot that dude, they were going to get him. So there were deer feathers in the air before we could even figure out what was going on. We got this stampede going, and Ethan nails one going this way with his infield, and Caleb goes running into the underbrush. And he goes down about 300 yards and with a 30-06 M1 Grand shoots this doe from the rear end all the way through the front.
Yep.
It carries it on his shoulders back.
I used to have a video of that. I remember hearing. I was walking back to the truck with mine, and I hear off in the distance, boom, 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 and I could hear this from hundreds of yards away. Boom, ping. I'm like, well, hopefully you got him on that one.
But it was a great set. It was a great set. We took two does and one buck.
Yep.
And I got the buck, and I still got him in my garage.
Yep. And we all looked at Garrett in disbelief.
Not that I made the shot.
That was a pretty nice shot.
The feeling I got because it'd been like 3 minutes since we'd had this discussion, and it was like Mexican standoff. I just remember looking over there and thinking, one of them's going to get him. It might as well be me.
I don't remember anybody looking anywhere. I just remember seeing that buck just running up over there on the bank, throw his chest out, kind of rattle his horns around. Next thing I know, I hear a loud boom, and I see white fur flying through the air.
And to be perfectly honest, that was the last deer I ever shot.
Yep.
It was.
Good times.
That was the end of it. I'll never be able to afford to hunt deer here again.
Yeah.
So like Green said, I was shooting bullseye match. Man, that was a good memory, though. I was shooting a bullseye pistol match last Thursday on the rifle range next door, and there were deer grazing. No one's shooting at the range, but they could hear us right next to them. No one was on the rifle range. Yeah, I'm probably getting tamed to it.
Well, here's what's funny about that one. I told you I popped up over the creek bed, and I went to go shoot, and I got a clack. This was the day I realized that I needed to do something with my lock because it had worn through the case hardening. Because I sit there, sharpened my flint, came back up over that creek bed, and she was still sitting there, got another clack, went down, tried to resharpen, but I was there for a good 5 minutes trying to get that musket to go off, and by the time I finally did, she was still standing there. So, yeah.
Not the brightest sometimes.
That's when being a smoker would be helpful because then you just make it like a matchlock and just stick a cigarette in there.
Yeah. I have gone turkey hunting with a matchlock before. That was kind of fun.
You get anything?
Yeah, I got unintentionally. I got two of them with one shot because they all come up in a single file line, and I didn't see the one behind them, and I touched off again. I was in a creek bed, touched off. Kaboom! And I saw the one that I shot flopping, and then I was like, "Oh, there's a little something extra back there."
That's all right. I know a guy that dropped 3 turkeys in one shot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you're shooting an 80 caliber musket.
Well, he was shooting a 10 gauge with tungsten loads.
Yep.
And he had 2 tags. And 2 turkeys had come up. And they were sitting there around his decoy. And he thought, oh, I'll just call out and shoot and I'll get my 2. And sure enough, he whistled out there and both of them stuck their heads up and he shot, got both of them. And then he said he picked them up and he was starting to walk out of there. And he said about 40 yards behind that, he said he was walking through and there's another dead turkey right there, still twitching.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to not do sometimes.
It was one of those that tungsten load that he'd shot had went past them and hit that turkey all the way down there.
Yeah. But then again, whenever I shot them turkeys and there was that loud boom and big ball of fire and smoke and everything, you know what the rest of the turkeys did? Flew straight up and roosted in the trees right over the top of me.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, you guys aren't very bright either.
Oh, the first turkey I killed, I was hunting down in a canyon, about an hour and a half south from me. And there was a group of about 80 turkeys. And they would go down. There was this 2 creeks that kind of run side by side of each other. And they about 60 yards apart, but they had cattails all the way through them. And so the turkeys were on the one side of the cattail, so I was going down between the cattails.
Mm-hmm.
And I got down, and there was an opening where the cows had went across there, and I could see the turkeys. Well, I took a shot at a tom, and I hit a hen. Thankfully, it was a fall, so I could tag a hen.
Yeah.
But when I shot all 80 of them turkeys, I thought I'd caught the tail of them. I didn't. I got to the front of them. There was 80 turkeys come straight up and right over the top of me, and I could have whacked almost every single one of them with my shotgun. They were that.
Yeah.
I mean, I was feeling the wind of them from their wings. That's how close they were to my head.
Yeah.
And so I let them go by, and then I have to think, it's like, well, my dad's got a tag too, and he's way back, about a mile back, because he took off his oxygen tank to try to keep up with me, and then got out of air. And it's like, well, I could have shot one of them for him and brought it back, but
you didn't have Sky Blaster with you.
No, but he got lucky because the turkeys went up and roosted in a tree. So I went back and we found his oxygen. We walked back down and he shot his out of a tree. And thankfully it was right close to the road there, because then I had to walk up about 2 miles and get the car and come back. By the time I come back, he'd passed out. He was so tired that he fell asleep. I couldn't find him.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when you're talking about them flying over your head like that. Caleb got the nickname from our uncle when he was just real young, Sky Blaster.
Caleb Sky Blaster.
Because he bought a Remington Model 11 way back when he was real young, and none of the rest of us had semi-auto shotguns really. I'd had a few. But he had this Remington Model 11 he'd got a hold of, and my uncle nicknamed him Sky Blaster because after he had them 5 shots in that automatic, as soon as the birds appeared on the horizon, he was shooting. And when they were going over the other horizon, he was still shooting.
He was laying down anti-aircraft fire. You ever seen them anti-aircraft guns in World War II? You just see that barrel rocking back and forth.
We always made fun of him. Yep. We always made fun of him, but I mean, he's actually a really good shot, especially when he was younger. When we'd pheasant hunt or quail hunt, or especially dove hunt, like he'd see those doves coming in a mile away, and he'd just be boom, boom, boom. And I just remember the funniest time was we were goose hunting, and we were creeping up on this marsh, and these things had to be like a mile over our head.
Oh, they weren't that.
Whatever it was far enough away, and I thought, they're going to land, and then I look over at Ethan, and there's Caleb. Boom, boom, boom.
They were far enough away that he couldn't hurt them, but they were close enough that you saw feathers flying off, and you heard a boom. They get hit.
Fell.
Yep, nothing fell. He just saw feathers flying through the air.
Ethan and saying, "That's our Sky Blaster."
Like Caleb.
Any geese that day?
Nope.
That's the first turkey I shot. I didn't really grow up like hunting and stuff. So I started doing this like after like my early 20s and stuff. But I was hunting deer, but I managed to be that person that catch poison ivy in the fall time.
It happens.
So I was sitting there suffering with that, and I was miserable. A bunch of turkeys come walking by. I had a 30-30. I was like, yeah, sure. Report me if you want.
Sergeant York said if you got a repeating rifle, you got a chance of getting the whole flock.
That's what I was going to say.
Took one shot, and I got a turkey with a 30-30. I was going for a head, but
that 30-30 is your all-round killer. Everything from turkey to buffalo.
Yeah,
Tell us about that.
Turkey to buffalo and one prairie dog.
Tell us about that wild buffalo hunt where you took your 30-30 on horseback and rode right along, charging and shooting into the. Was that not how it went?
No.
Oh, was it adventurous?
Nope.
Was it dangerous?
Nope.
Was it hard?
Nope.
You might have slipped on the running board stepping out of the pickup. That could have hurt.
Went out there like last ones of the day to go out there because I was there running around and trying to get a trailer and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We go out there. I bring the sharps. I just got off a Duke because that was the original plan. But I thought about it. I never even shot. I barely even shot this thing. I don't know where it shoots. So I took the 30-30 with me too. I was like, well, either one. So we load up with the Rangers and we go out to the buffalo pasture. And those buffalo just surround us. They're expecting feed. They're expecting cake. That's what they're expecting. And then
that's good.
My tag says a 5-year-old bull, like somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
And the ranger points at a derelict old bull that has to be maybe 10 plus years old. Because what about that one? I'm like, well, if you're giving me a choice. Do you have like any young cows that you don't care that go missing? Well, what about that one? Look, yeah, sure.
That's kind of like if you go down to the rifle shop. Jesse, the guy that runs that place, he's got a wall gun. That's the first thing you see when you walk through the doors. You see that wall gun, big old 1-inch, 100 caliber wall gun like I'm building here. And he was telling me, he goes, yeah, he's like, I got a pretty funny story about that gun right there. He's like, he got some picture to go with it. He said, when we first started this, he said there was the local Indian tribe out here. They said they do a ceremonial buffalo hunt every year. He said they wanted to borrow a Sharps rifle. So he said, I told him and said, yeah, I got a Sharps. So he said they come over there and they showed up, and the first thing they see when they walk through the doors, they see that wall gun. They said, hey, would you mind if we use that instead? So he said he let him take it, and he has a picture of them standing around this buffalo with a hole that big through the other shoulder going out. He said they came back and they brought back that wall gun and they showed him that picture. He said, yeah, I think next time we'll stick with the Sharps. So he shot him with a quite literal light artillery piece. Yeah, it's gonna do that.
Yeah.
It was like a cartoon. You know, you see the sunlight shining through the hole.
Yeah. When I was 18 or 19, I had my first rifle, which I still have. It's a 9130, nothing special.
Mm-hmm.
But my dad was watching it, making sure I didn't run off and be done with it. Which, okay, fair enough. And I think it's like Thanksgiving or like the day after Thanksgiving, I'm driving around with my cousins, and just like on the main road I live by, like 2 miles south on the junction. We're sitting there staring at the ditch and like, is that what you think it is? Yeah, I think it is. And we're just staring at it. It was a buffalo and its calf.
Mm-hmm.
My cousin right away. Where's your rifle? My dad's watching it because of stuff like this.
Well, that sounds like a coyote we almost killed up there once. I still swear if Duke had another half-inch of barrel on that pistol, he would have shot the nose right off that coyote. Well, technically, he did shoot the nose right off that coyote. It just didn't go no further than that.
I don't know. I don't know about coyotes, but I know that Duke's really good at shooting GoPros at 300 yards with a 1911. Buried GoPros.
It's still here.
Thing was, the day before that, I about nailed a coyote at 100 yards with that 1911.
Yeah. Yeah, landing indirect fire on the GoPro.
Duke is just the reincarnation of
Hey,
Wild Bill.
I am happy to announce that since we decided to make a few more videos, Caleb broke down and bought us a Hero 11 the other day, so we got a GoPro again.
Did you get bulletproof glass to put it
Yeah, I'm going to put it in the case. I kid you not, if it's downrange with us, it's going to get shot.
Well, Garrett and Duke...
I've shot the main camera.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Garrett shot the camera lens. He shot the tripod. Have you ever shot the chronograph? I think you've shot a chronograph before, haven't you?
Well, I don't know. I actually just took it out. Have I shot? Yeah, I shot this chronograph.
Yeah. Yep, shot the chronograph.
Right there.
Oh, Caleb has unintentionally shot.
To be fair, this chronograph deserves to be shot sometimes.
Caleb unintentionally shot one of them big old metal highline poles one time at about 600 yards away with a matchlock musket one time.
Now, Ethan, don't be telling tales out of school.
He went to go shoot that when we first got it, and we didn't figure out how to make match cord.
Mm-hmm.
And we're using graphite coated powder. And he went to go shoot that gun, and it was a terrible combination. That gun would not go off with that combination for love nor money. But it did go off one time whenever he went, and he opened up the pan, and he went to go shoot. And he squeezed, and he squeezed, and he squeezed, and nothing happened. And he went like this, and it went kaboom! We all kind of looked at each other, and we're like, well, that was unfortunate. And off in the distance, you heard, dong! He hit one of the metal highlight poles like 6 yards away with a musket. I was like, Nick, that's pretty impressive.
We decided to move our range out from under the highline poles.
Yeah.
Joshua Harris said, Ethan, my dad did the same thing with a home-built flintlock, full-stock flintlock Hawk and Flint rifle. Sorry. That gun clicked 3 times, and the buck was bedded. He just stood up and walked off.
Yeah.
Soylent
Pretty much how that whole thing went.
That chrono has issues anyway. Remember, your 4570 loads at 7,000 feet per second. No, that was actually Ethan's gun store chrono.
Yeah, that's the one where you have it work.
It was 9,000 feet per second with 450 grain bullet out of a 4570.
And here's the funny thing: anytime I want to chronograph anything in there, it works fine. But anytime you try to use anything black powder, and I found out what it is, it's in that building. It's in, well, I mean, not even black powder, but anything that produces enough of a shock wave that it rattles that building inside of that indoor range. I don't know what it is about it, but it will cause it to read weird.
But yeah, no, but this one out here reads even worse sometimes. Yeah, get a Garmin someday, but that's you can basically buy another Sharps rifle what Ethan paid for it for a Garmin.
Yeah. I remember what happened to that first one. I wish I still had that video. Our first 4th of July brown vest video. I went to go chronograph a brown vest at about 2 feet with a 200 grain charge. Yep, the concussion took the chronograph away.
What were you saying, Sheldon?
I was going to say, no, this is like one last quick hunting story that's not a camera. I only ever went, you can call it hunting once. What's it? Grouse hunting. Only ever did that once. Can't even call it hunting. There's like a little flock of them on the road. I had my 66 carbine. I took a shot. I missed. Like it just went like right left of him. So I moved the sight a little bit or the gun a little bit. And got him. He was pretty good distance. It was a headshot too. And I was surprised I did that because not even a few minutes, like 10 minutes before, I dropped my friend off and he was talking about how he'd been running grouse, but he hasn't, he doesn't do hunting. So I got that and I drove down to his place because I was still by his place. He was in his truck eating a burger. I just plop it right on the hood. There you go.
Too much gun, as John Wayne would say.
It took the head off. The meat was good.
The meat was still perfect. You're in good shape. And you still couldn't stop that deserter at Fort Larned last year?
You wouldn't hand me the Spencer.
Oh, well, you had 3 big knives.
Yeah, but he was far.
Oh, yeah, but you could have thrown it.
That Spencer would have done it.
Let's never
3
forget
big
that.
knife blades on a stick.
That guy's deserting. Oh, no, pretty soon here he comes back with handcuffs, but unfortunately they locked him away with the keys in his pocket or something to that effect.
Right?
No, it was walking him down the lane, and the lieutenant there looked and he says, "They didn't take the key out of the handcuffs."
Well, you'll have a hard time getting out of that guardhouse. Oh, man. I can't wait. I've been looking forward to this all year long, man. I cannot wait. So many good times, good stories. Duke is not disarming for beans and rice.
Nope.
Yeah.
I'll disarm for a T-bone steak.
Yep.
So you're saying it's not a matter of principle, it's a matter of
I asked
reward.
Duke if
Yeah.
he wants to be. I asked Duke that one day through text. I said, since you want everything to be 100% authentic, do you want to cook a dog? And he was like, "Nah."
Yeah, you know.
Nope.
But we are going to have some ox dung anyway. I'm bringing it. So that'll be fun.
Okay.
And we got Ethan and Noah this year to carry water and do dishes.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
There you go.
Not me. Oh, man.
Yeah,
was that
somebody
Gary's
should
job
really
last year?
play the cook.
I can handle that.
Well, don't look at
I'm not
me.
Playing that.
I was gonna say Duke
That looks like for somebody who's more civilized.
Duke
like
looks
Garrett.
more like Duke looks more like a cookie
Well,
than anyone.
You know, Garrett's this, big East businessman. You know, he's got to have a personal cook along.
You look more like cookie than anyone, Duke.
Hey,
Yeah.
What was the name of that cook off of Red Dead Redemption?
Pearson?
Yeah. There you go, Duke.
Oh yeah,
I
gee,
can,
thanks.
I can play Pearson.
Tell us about your time in the Navy.
Wouldn't hurt my feelings to play Pearson. Oh.
Just when those Union boys corner you up, just don't say you're trying to fight like a corner tiger.
Yeah, I think the thing is, if you're going to play a cook from that time period, you got to learn to use some profanities.
See, Duke's perfect.
Yeah, so I was gonna say,
There you go,
Duke,
Duke,
you're
you're
lucky.
digging the hole deeper.
Ah.
Tell us about your time in the Navy, you know.
Oh. Well, Henry was a pretty good cook. I will say that. He cooked ox tongue
Yeah.
last year, and it was, well, he called it buffalo tongue, but I think it was ox tongue.
It tastes the same.
No, that one actually might have been a buffalo tongue.
It might have been. I just remember somebody asking him, and he said, "You want to inspect or something to that effect?"
Like, I can bring down some stuff. You guys don't have to eat it, but I was gonna go Team Sula digging. I think Duke had it before.
What's that?
Remember that year at Fort Laramie? I brought down those little white turnips.
Oh yeah, you brought them down. I didn't eat them.
Okay.
Because the day you was cooking them, that was the day that I was having a little bit of a disagreement with somebody, and I got ticked off and went home.
Oh yeah.
You went home over peach cobbler?
No. It was completely something
Oh.
different. I don't remember
I was
the
about to
legend now.
say you went home over
I
peach
remember the
cobbler.
person.
Yep.
You know, Duke had a disagreement. He took off. I was sitting there like, man, these guys are really cool.
Oh man.
I may have like a very serious stone face if I ain't talking, but I'm not. I ain't the smartest man out there.
You just thought that
Well,
they
see-
were playing this part real well, huh?
Yeah.
See, that's why I thought that maybe this year, you know, I'd go as a Silent Jack Corbin, because they said he was notorious for not saying a whole lot. And I said, you know what? That'd be a good role for me, because I don't know a whole lot about what I'm talking about this time period.
Yep.
I know.
Just keep my mouth shut.
I know a little bit. I still haven't read much into Hancock's War.
I got that right here. I come over here to read it so that I don't have to worry about the screaming children in my ear.
Where's that other book? It's right there in front of you, isn't it? Show that book
Yep.
off.
Yeah, this is actually the manager of the store I work at. He works for the Historical Society, and he got a hold of Hostile Indians, military division of the Missouri from 1868 to 1882 by Lieutenant General P.H. Sheridan. He got a hold of that book, and he went and copied the book off. So I got it there. Problem is, it doesn't really apply to our Fort Larned thing this year because there's only, 2 engagements before we're supposed to be there?
Yeah.
In that book.
But August of 1868 gets pretty wild.
What was the time periods that he said was allowed? Was it 65?
60, 64, 65, 68, and 79.
Okay. So, closer.
I think we're settled into 68
Yeah.
for what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You mean
because Noah's rolling block barely squeezes in authentically. Even if it's not common, it exists.
It's not Nug?
Well, what's Nug in civilian world?
Yeah.
That was like when I was reading Elmer Keith's article on like a sharpshooter shooting like in the 40s.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about when he was a kid, no, I forgot how the story went, but they said they found the body of a dead Indian warrior. Doesn't say what tribe. They found a Colt revolving rifle with his body. So, and he was laying there for a few decades, so he was already kind of skeletal.
Huh?
Yeah. I've read Elmer Keith's books before. I've come to the conclusion that Elmer may or may not, every now and then, not talking about that story in particular, but sometimes he might stretch the truth just a little bit.
Yeah, it's
what was it that
story? What
was it that one story where he shot he knew a guy who shot a bull elk at 600 yards offhand with a .45 Colt and dropped him dead? Yeah, that story was a little
it might be true. I just know that he's kind of like what's his face down there says at Cimarron Arms. Mike Harvey always says, "Never let the."
He's a good storyteller.
Good story.
Yep, that's exactly what it was. He had some pretty good stories about 32 rimfire Smith & Wesson number 2s in there too in the Civil War.
When I was on my trip back in December, they have like 1-to-1 replicas of the Smith & Wesson Model 2s.
Yes.
And they're just actual airsoft. I was gonna buy one and just use it because I was like, close enough.
Yeah.
Without having to ding around an antique.
Yeah.
But completely forgot to do it. And like I can buy them here still. It's just the price is just a little bit jacked up.
Don't worry, I'm not touching it, but there is one up there on the shelf right there. I'm looking at number 2. The cool thing about them pistols, and I was thinking about it the other day whenever I was pointing at the number 2 in particular, is the most, and the number 2 and the Colt Patterson, as much as I hate to say it, those guns are the closest that I've ever felt whenever I go to point it out that it feels like I'm pointing my finger.
Yes,
the number 2 Smith & Wesson and the Patterson. Now,
I would take the number 2 Smith & Wesson over a Patterson 1,000 times.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, that is a thing about it. It legitimately feels like you are pointing your finger when you point that gun. Because that barrel, that whole bore axis is basically right there at your finger level when you're pointing.
Okay.
Out of all the Smith & Wessons, I think the number 2 Army is my favorite.
I do like the number 2 Army. The number 3 American's probably my favorite, though. I like the grip. I like the grip on that for a big, large frame, a number 3 frame pistol.
Yeah.
Because it's not like the Russians. The Russians were always swept back a bit. And especially get to the 3rd model Russian, it's like it goes out of its way to go out and then down.
Yeah. Well, it's been wanting to get one of Cimarron's Model 3 replicas.
Yeah.
They look cool.
I don't know if they still make them anymore. I haven't looked in a long time, but they used to make a replica of the American, but they made it with Schofield internals.
They still make it. It's just like the ejection is the ejection is Schofield, but
Yeah,
it's not a big a big issue for
not
me.
a deal breaker.
Yeah, it's kind of like if someone came to Fort Larned and they saw me and they get mad because I'm mixed, not full. It's like, well, you get close enough, so shush.
Yeah. Well, I actually sent an email to Cimarron one time, and they probably had a good laugh about this. I said I'd be very interested in a custom. I said I'd even pay extra for a custom model of your Cimarron number 3 American, but I want it chambered in 44 American. I didn't ever get a response back.
If anybody ever does that to you, Sheldon, just say, I'm that renegade George Bent. Whose little boy are you?
Right? Or I forgot his name, but I'm not Southern Cheyenne, Comanche, Plains Apache, Kyle. I forgot the guy's name. I was like,
you're not getting your annuities. His name was it wasn't Schofield, but it was a name like that. It was an officer's name, but it was the same name, but it wasn't the same character. Who was it? I can't remember. It was somebody like that.
Like, well, I just kind of shot back. Well, I'm here and they ain't. So
I thought you shot back. You're gonna shot back with what we do with our agents up in.
You know what the Dakota? You know what the Dakota did to their agent back in '62?
Give me my annuities. And then he said,
I would have looked at him and said, my scalping knife's still just as sharp as theirs.
Right.
No, he come around and invited Sheldon to church, and it was something about I can't go to church because I'm not Prairie, Apache, Kiowa.
Oh, yeah, because he's the guy. I got him too with that.
Yeah, let
your women may be silent.
Yeah, let your women be silent in church.
Yep.
And it was the look on his face. I if I had slapped him, I couldn't have got a better look out of him.
Oh.
I even stopped Garrett up there for a second with that one.
You did, because you didn't tell me about that part. I was just a good little boy going to church. You didn't tell me about that part. That historical inaccuracy.
I wasn't even. I don't go to church. So, because the first thing he said to me that Sunday was, why don't you go to church, you heathen, or something like that? I was like, that's exactly why.
You're heathen.
Garrett come out of that church that morning, and he started in on me. You weren't in church.
No. I asked you to go beforehand, before I knew. When I come out, I was just as embarrassed as you was laughing at me as I was on my way out. I wasn't saying nothing. I was trying to duck out of there.
No, I said it to you after you come out because
you did say it, yeah.
And Garrett just kind of sit there and he's almost stuttered. But then that guy came up to me. It wasn't 5 minutes later. He's like, "You heathen! You weren't in church." And I looked at him and I said, "I understand there was a woman preaching." He's like, "Well, yeah." And I said, "Let your women be silent in church. Who's the blasphemer now?"
That's when you're supposed to say, I hope it was a blast for you, because it certainly was a blast for me.
I will say
that's a good one.
Whether it worked out for me or not, of all the memories I have at Fort Larned, Duke standing outside that church just waiting for me when I come out of there. It's going to be a memory that will live with me forever. That was pretty good.
What you guys were doing, I was over in that tent, crashed out.
I thought you were so.
And the real sad part of it was that woman that was a preacher. The second time around, I said it. She was standing right inside the door there when I said it to them. I said, "You probably ain't even gonna speak to me when I go back this time."
Well, she was your buddy.
Yeah, I've never
been preached at, but I guess if Libby Custer's going to preach at me, I guess, if any of them.
Oh, her, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, this is too much fun. JB, Soylent Green said 44 Russian black powder in it. Soylent Green said, yeah, they make them as Schofield internals just for the ease of manufacture. I got a 44 special 8-inch one, but the barrel was 433, so I had to send it back for a new barrel. Got it back, and I shoot 44 Russian black powder in it. JB said,
Yeah.
glad to see y'all back. Been watching as I can, but gonna have to rewatch the whole thing. Been rewatching past streams on all the channels. Oh, thank you. We'll try to do a few more. It's not going to be real steady for a while, but we'll get back to it eventually.
Like one thing
This
I
one's
really
just
want to get Americans. I wanted 2 of them because in that Wild Reshout Boys it says William Janice had 2 of them.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm still trying to find that copy Duke got me, but I'm about to just email Fort Laramie and ask for a copy.
I have a book over there that's got a list of all the famous, like Schofield's, Americans, 44 Russians, all that. Anything Smith and Wesson related, they have the serial numbers of who all got what and who all. That's where you'll find out that unlike in Tombstone,
Reshots and Janices.
What was that, Ethan?
Sorry.
unlike it. I was thinking what Garrett was saying, but unlike in Tombstone, Wyatt Earp did not carry a buntline special single action army.
I have that scene where he comes behind the tree when Doc Holly kills Ringo, and you just see that barrel flopping, and like,
yeah, just flopping in the wind, rubber barrel. Yeah,
but yeah, because I'm trying to remember, because it's in that book, or it wasn't even a book. It was like a little, what did you say, like a couple pages.
Mm-hmm.
While Risha's says that William Janice had 2 of them with ivory grips. And sometimes I take stuff like that with a grain of salt. I do take stuff like that with a grain of salt.
You said number 3 American.
Yeah, well, that's what they said because he died in like 1872. So.
Mm-hmm.
But it said his Indian name was like owns the white handle gun or something like that, or something like that. I don't know if it's been a bit since I read it, and it vanished. I'm thinking my coworker borrowed it and didn't bring it back because he's a Richards, so
he's a Risha.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny because the other day I texted Sheldon and I think I blew his mind when I said, just out of nowhere, I said maturity is when you realize that Dennis Quaid was better than Val Kilmer.
Oh, here I have it marked.
And he said it's blasphemy. And I was building up on that. It's like 2 hours later, I checked the internet. Val Kilmer's dead. Oh, well, what a day for this. What a day to say such a thing.
Oh, geez.
So there is a lot of famous people who carried number 3 Americans.
Wyatt Earp, I'm sorry, Wyatt Earp. I was a dentist. I was not ashamed to be a dentist.
He's got another line that I really love.
Oh, I bet you do.
You all may kiss my rebel.
I think that he hadn't been overshadowed by Val Kilmer, people would still be talking about that. You know it?
Val Kilmer is the only Doc Holly you can have, and anyone who tries to keep up with it, because that's what people.
Here's the number 3 American that was recovered at Little Bighorn.
Yeah. Well, I'll be right back. So before you show
James E. Porter of 7th Cavalry had a number 3 American at Little Bighorn.
Yeah, supposedly Black Elk got hold of it, but they said it was nickel plated. And the thing is, it is from that window Grand Guard, and I don't really trust that, man.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be right back.
Okay.
This has all the serial numbers of all of the. It shows you how many of America's very first centerfire pistol cartridge handgun we ever used. This shows you how many of them they are. They have all their serial numbers in 2 pages.
Well, that would be the conversion.
1,000.
The armies, right?
The very first, I should say, readily made or from the factory centerfire cartridge guns, the 44 Americans, they only ordered 1,000 of them.
When was that? 69?
Yes.
Okay, so that would have been before they started converting the Colts, anyway.
Yeah, 1869, because it was December of 69 is whenever the Russians showed up and were looking at
here's
getting
the question. Why in the world
Russians.
didn't they introduce a big bore rimfire revolver during the Civil War?
Because of copper cases.
Well,
The copper cases.
Copper cases in.
Yeah, in a revolver where you got that spinning cylinder. This is the reason why the number 2 is only in 32 rimfire, is because they had done an experimental number 2 in a heavier in a 44 caliber rimfire with a copper case. And what they found was that the case, whenever it was put under heavier pressures, would bulge in the back, and it would drag on the recoil shield from the cylinder. I can't remember all that off the top of my head. It's been about 4 years since I've read that part of that book.
Well, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, so that's why they only stuck with a 32.
Well, we're down to 10 people from
35. This has mainly just been about like a get together.
Yeah, we had a pretty good crowd at first.
Yeah, in that Wendell Grangar's book, he says he was friends with Nicholas Black Elk's son.
Mm-hmm.
Black Elk had a 60 Army that belonged to his dad, and then had a nickel-plated number 3 American. I say he recovered that his dad recovered out of, or his grandpa recovered out of a saddlebag.
Yeah, that number 3 American, that pistol really feels pretty nice.
Well, I've met that Grangar. He seems all right, but he does seem a little bit of a charlatan.
Yeah.
A little bit of a charlatan.
A little bit.
Soylent Green has a good point. He said, good thing R.L. Wilson didn't like Smiths.
Yeah, see, that was what I was going to say. R.L. Wilson. Speaking of R.L. Wilson, we were talking about that True West magazine or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that's what I guess we got the Wild West magazine here. And I opened it up and I was like, yeah, there's some pretty interesting information. It's got a lot of colorful pictures, probably written by R.L. Wilson.
By the way, that's Grandpa's Wild West magazine from the 90s.
Well, here's what's funny about it. There's one page in here that's dog-eared. Taking stock of the Springfield trap door. I wonder who did that.
Yeah, that's probably a very young me.
Yeah. Or Caleb. This one got blown in half.
Yeah, that was I'm pretty sure that was the older model 73 when they tried to put a 100 grain charge and a 500 grain bullet in it without expending the gas ports.
Well, no, this one got blown in half because somebody shot the buttstock.
Oh, okay. Plowboy's Ghost said, I've been listening for an hour. Well, thanks, Plowboy.
Yeah, some Plowboy I approve of. When I start making videos again here and I do some of them YouTube shorts and I have everybody complaining about the Rebel Drive up there. Once I start doing that again, I'm just going to start filming videos over in the other corner where I got the whole flag hanging up.
A big flag.
Yeah.
So, this has been hanging on my ceiling since basically last year because I ordered it for Larned, did not show up for Larned. So hopefully I get to use it for Larned.
What's that?
Yeah.
You saw it before, Garrett.
Yeah.
In the picture. Well, I got a little kettle.
Oh, you got your kettle.
There you go.
All right.
That's cool. I'm going to have a mucket. Finally.
I thought about ordering the bigger one. Was like, it's not going to barely.
That probably would have been pretty calming for making coffee in at the time. Like having a coffee pot a lot of times. Just
I know it.
Grains in there.
Oh yeah, that was a question I was going to have. Who's the coffee maker in this group at Larned?
They make it for you.
Oh, do they? Good.
Yeah. We may not even be able to have a fire out there.
Oh yeah, because it's dry.
Wind, yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's have to see when we get there.
We didn't have a fire until I thought about seeing if I could bring my own fire barrel that's like maybe 6 inches tall, and then bring rocks to put around it so it's a little more disguised.
See, I ordered a bunch of.
We had a little fire thing.
Yeah, it was a barrel.
Yeah.
Half barrel.
Yeah, it was a lick tub.
Okay.
Yeah. See, I ordered a bunch of Lucifer matches. You ever seen them? Yeah, Lucifer matches. I was going to go out there and I was expecting old Noah to do what Noah does best when we go and set up like a little campsite or something. He goes out there with his flint and steel. He goes and he starts his fire. I was going to sit out there and wait for him to start his fire and be like, oh, that's pretty cool. Light a match, throw it in. Well, historically accurate Lucifer matches.
Right.
Yeah, we bought some ship's lanterns. Woo, that was not cheap.
Uh-huh.
$40 a piece. But we got all kinds of cool stuff coming in. We got a half shelter, but then I realized looking back that I think Henry had 2 half shelters put together that we were under because a half shelter is only 5 foot by 6 foot.
I don't remember. Well, I saw that one.
You ought to remember. You were looking up at it quite a bit.
I see a lot of things and I spaced out. You can tell me something, I'll look away and like, huh?
I got a picture of you taking a nap.
Yeah. It was a good nap.
That's
That
funny.
happened a lot.
Sleep at night. Slept during the day. I got sod cloth on my tent this time. I set it up the other day, and I was like, nope, no wind coming under this bad boy.
Like, hopefully, I get the poles. I do need a way to bring them back, so I found out Harbor Freight sells ladder racks that can hold up to 800 pounds, and those poles won't even be that much, like maybe not even a quarter of it. So that'd be nice.
Are you going to use like rawhide to hold them up or actual rope?
Rope.
Yeah, I didn't know
If
how
I
they did
get
it.
a buffalo hide, it's going to either get turned into an actual rope I can sleep on, or leather, or rawhide. But rawhide I can use make like containers and stuff out of it.
Yeah.
Then I can just buy a bunch of rope for cheap.
Well, I learned my lesson from seeing how well Duke slept last year. I ordered about 6 blankets.
Yeah, I got my Hudson Bay one. I got the expensive trade blanket, and
One thing's for sure, sleeping didn't bother Duke out there.
oh, he had the private suite.
Yeah.
Private suite.
He done run Sheldon out of there.
Well,
Get the private suite.
gotta keep the bugs out somehow.
You slept pretty good. I know that much. Yeah. I give up on night 2 with that wind blowing under that tent. Just went and slept in the pickup.
I might have to bum into Sheldon's teepee this time.
It's 16 foot. It can fit people. So
Yeah.
I found out that a 6
I
foot
call no
tall,
spooning. Okay.
6 foot tall by 9 by 8 is not near as big as you think it is.
Yeah.
No, because it's 6 foot tall in the middle.
No,
The rest of it ain't so tall.
I thought about buying the hospital.
Yeah, that we kind of joked about that. That'd be pretty funny. Say, yeah, this is my buddy old California Joe right here. My name's Silent Jack Corbin, and here's our field hospital we've set up out here.
Yeah, you don't want one of them. Them things are huge.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Pain in the butt.
See, you talk about private suite. That would be your private mansion.
Right.
Yeah.
My
one of them, and then it doesn't take much wind to blow them down either.
Yeah.
Yeah, my one rule for the teepee is no spooning. So
If that's the only rule, then I guess I can eat Taco Bell beforehand.
That's what I was gonna say.
Well, we're parking you by the door, and then I found a nice little reference that Bad Hand even uses. Is back in the day they did wall off section of the teepee, so if they want to,
you're gonna one off section Duke out.
Duke will still get his private suite. It's all planned.
It's all planned.
He's like,
Did you do
the plans of mice and men. Oh, we probably ought to shut this down someday.
Yeah, I'm about ready to fall asleep.
Yeah, I'm about ready to start getting to work.
Yep. Well, guys, thank you guys. If you guys got anything else to say, that was a fun chat. That was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Honestly, thought we might never do this again, but now I'm remembering how fun it is.
I look forward to them.
Oh,
Even if I was like before when I was just there watching them.
yeah, that's good. Just a bunch of idiots sitting here talking and laughing. Oh, anyway. All right, guys. I think that's about it. So thank you guys for watching. I'll try to, if we do this again here in the next month or so, I'll try to give a little more heads up as to when we're doing it. But as always, trust in God. Keep your powder dry. Bye.